Hello, everyone. My name is Apostate. The purpose of today's live stream is to give a space for ex-Muslims to call and talk about whatever is on their mind. A lot of ex-Muslims haven't had the chance to have a conversation about their life, about religion and leaving religion. So hopefully this is a good place and time to do that. If you'd like to join, the link is pinned to the live chat. Just once you enter, please leave a brief description of who you are and what you'd like to talk about today. And before we begin, we do have a couple of callers already in queue, so thank you very much for being on time, earlier on time, I suppose. I have a bit of homework for everyone. I just posted this as a community post a few hours ago, but I'll show you these verses on screen. So these verses, Surah 3, verse 65 and 66, but mostly 65, I found something very peculiar and very obvious about this verse that I think can possibly be used to disprove Islam altogether, if if you consider that even a thing to be done. I mean, I think Islam was never proven to begin with, but I think this might be a fun exercise. So if you figure out what is wrong with this verse, or what's peculiar about this verse, don't tell anyone. Don't say it on the live stream. Wait till I make a video about it. But feel free to comment about it if you'd like. I'm curious if people are going to pick up on this like I did once I saw it. So that's your homework for the day. Keep your critical thinking going. um, yeah, and I'm about to put the first caller on live, and I'd like to ask every caller who joins to tell me how they found my channel or my first presence on social media, how they came across me, because I'm always curious about that. So, the next caller, well, the first caller is Old Spice. I am adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good. How about you, Aladdin?
I am great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, so been a long time fan of the channel. I came across you a couple of years ago. I think it was just having like a very big like self self finding phase, and I was like watching a lot of Apostate Prophet, and I just stumbled across like a video of yours, and just the way that you thought about Islam and it like how you approached it from less of like theological perspective, but more of like an empathetic perspective, really like resonated with me. Um, so yeah, I'm a closeted ex-Muslim. My whole family, like, they have absolutely no clue how gone in the deep end I am, and yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you found my channel, and I'm glad that you found my approach interesting to you. And I'm sorry to hear that you're closeted. Tell me more about that if you'd like. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, for sure. Just to like before I say that, I might be going off call soon because I'm actually waiting for my girlfriend. But yeah, it's pretty hard. Like, I think so. I like my parents are really religious, and my whole family is has always been really religious. And I grew up in the Middle East, and when I was growing up, I was just bombarded from every angle on Islam, and I have very deep knowledge about it because I read translations of the Quran, and I was just constantly forced to pray, forced to be in this little bubble of Islam. And for some reason, even when I was like 10 and 12, like, I just wouldn't pray. I would be like showing to myself as praying, but I just for some reason I just didn't care. And I wonder why. Like, I guess because I'm lucky to have a good childhood and I had like a lot of independent time, I was able to like subconsciously take develop some empathy for non-religious people, non like Islamic people. And I feel like even early on in that, like as a child, I think I might have consciously not known it, but I think in the back of my mind I knew that Islam was not true. And just stemming from the basic, heaven and hell concepts. And I knew it was just too extreme, and especially because I was so educated on it from an early age. Um, yeah, like I knew that something was off about it. So when I came to university, it was a bit of a journey. I never prayed from the single first day I came to North America for university. I never prayed once, but I was still not sure like where I stood on the religious spectrum. So I never prayed, but I I feel like even though I was so far gone from Islam because I hadn't prayed in a decade, like I hadn't actually done the wudu ritual or anything like that. So I feel like because I was so far gone, I was able to, like, it was hard at first, but I was able to like commit some haram things. So like I started off with eating haram food, and I feel like that unconsciously, like your brain unconsciously starts to realize that, oh, I've committed this haram thing, but nothing has really changed. And if you're already like kind of far off from the religion, you're like, even unconsciously, I feel like your brain will be able to change with that. So I'm actually very lucky. Like I have, it's so, like, believe it or not, like my whole group of friends here, like a whole 6, 7 group of friends here, are all ex-Muslims. Some took longer than others to like, um, you know, join the dark side. But yeah, like I feel like there's just so many reasons, and I've contemplated it so much, in my life. But yeah, it's crazy.
Well, you said that you've. By the way, do tell me if you need to go at any point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You said that you didn't pray from the day that you went to university, the day that you moved away. You didn't pray. Did you feel any sort of way about that?
Not really, because yeah, like I hadn't been praying before that as well. Like the only time I actually prayed, like where I actually had an intention to pray, was when I was 16. And for some reason I just became really religious for a month because I got really, really good grades, and I was like so thankful. But I don't know, that was just like an exception. But I don't know, like it's weird because I've been in this bubble my whole life, and I see my siblings and I see my parents, and they're just they believe it so much, but for some reason it hasn't like it never like reckoned with me. And yeah, I just had to commit haram like one by one. So it started off with not, like, I was already not praying, and then I ate haram food, and then, oh, I actually might have to go.
No worries. I'm glad
But
you got to call, but yeah, sorry about that.
yeah, so I'm sorry,
That's
but
all right.
I'll make sure to like tune in again if you're gonna be doing more streams. And again, yeah, big fan, and keep up the great work.
Yeah. Thank you very much for saying that, and hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya. Bye bye. All right. Thanks for calling, Old Spice. Now I'll take the next caller after I read just a couple of super chats. Thank you, by the way, ES 1002. I think I came across you through Abdullah Samir. A lot of people have told me that, so thanks to Abdullah Samir for featuring me on his channel. I think my first ever appearance on the internet as Aladdin was on his channel, and I didn't even intend on having a YouTube channel at that point or any online presence. I just chose a name, and I thought of choosing a name from the Aladdin movie for some reason, and Aladdin is the one. And there's um, there's some irony behind that name, so it all happened kind of coincidentally. But thank you to Abdullah Samir for featuring me, and thanks for the super chat. And Simon Roper says, personally, I believe in theosis. Great channel, Apostate. Well, thanks for the super chat and the comment. What is that? Do tell us more, because I am curious. I don't think I know what that is. So I am taking the next caller. For those who have just joined in the private chat, please give me a brief description of who you are and what you'd like to talk about today. So I'll take the next caller now. Shaun, I believe we have spoken before, but I'm more than happy to speak with you again. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Apostate Aladdin, how are you doing?
I am doing all right. How about you?
Pretty good. Yeah, it has been a few months since I talked to you, but I've been watching your live streams. They are my guilty pleasure, and if I get like even an hour or two during the day, I love your in particular Why Do You Believe series, and so I watched the last one, and and then I decided, hey, I'd like to jump on and talk to you again. So, and the way I came across you is about a year ago. I found out about like the ex-Muslim community on YouTube, like the people who post, and then I saw you were one of them, and then I was just drawn more to you, in particular how you allow call-ins, and to me, honestly, it's a therapy session, and it's one of the best I've witnessed, and I've worked in mental health, and it's amazing what you do. So much respect to you.
Well, thank you. That is very flattering and humbling. And I don't, for everyone to know, I'm not a mental health professional. I don't intend this to be a therapy session, but I know that it can be very therapeutic, and I'm happy that it has that effect on people. So, yeah, and thank you for saying all that. And I'm glad you found my channel.
Absolutely. And you have such a gentle style too. I mean, it's very easy for people who have suffered under Islam to fall into anger and even want to revenge and that whole cycle. But you seem to have a personality that is free of that, and I admire that as well.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to talk about, I just had a thought in my head, like I'm a non-believing person in a family that is very devoutly Muslim, and it's been tough. I guess like the term ex-Muslim, I don't use that really because I never really believed, and so I just say I'm a non-believer or whatever. But one of the thoughts I had was, if I came to you and I told you like, hey, I'm being visited by an angel and he's giving me revelations, like what are the odds you would believe it?
I mean, what's my background? But these days, probably zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. And if I went around and told 100 people that exact same thing, I'm guessing 0 people would believe me. And so I had this thought. I wonder if actually anybody believed Muhammad when he told people he was being visited by Jibril when nobody was watching him, and was hearing all of these revelations. It just doesn't add up to me. And you just posted like in your one of your posts like about the Quran verse and the Torah and etc. And even just taking that one verse that you ask people as homework to look into, we're assuming that Jibril said that. I guess we're assuming Jibril said that exact quote to Muhammad, who then said that exact quote to some people, who then, I guess then Muhammad died, and then those people later on perfectly remembered this quote. I mean, is that the assumption? Is how the Quran is written?
Yeah, supposedly, when Muhammad said it, a lot of people around him take notice and memorize it, and eventually they write it down.
Okay.
But as we know, the Quran wasn't actually officially compiled till like many, many decades after his death.
Right.
So we don't even know exactly which verses were there and which ones weren't. But
Yes.
if we go by the standard narrative, it's that these are exactly the words that Jibril told him Allah wanted to tell him. Yeah.
Okay. So now why would anybody believe that? And Muhammad in particular was an illiterate person. He may have been honest, but everybody's honest. You're honest, I'm honest. And he was a salesman to that point. So it wasn't as if he was a merchant or whatever. And then after he told people, he was driven out of Mecca back to Medina. So people didn't believe him. In fact, they rejected him. And I believe there was just a few people in his family who believed him at that point.
I can't remember if it was family, but there were a few people who believed him or went with him to Medina. Yeah.
A few people who already were in a relationship with him.
His closest people. Yeah, pretty much.
Right. So they were already in his family. And then when he came back, it wasn't because people started to believe him. It was because he amassed a force of people. Like he started to do caravan raids, And if you understand now, if you try and look at this in a perspective of human motivation, like people are motivated, like why did religion arise? It arose, well, individuals do get some psychological need from religion, but the elites use religion to control masses. And so once Muhammad got a force of people, and they had a motive because they were getting money from caravan raids, and possibly they were even getting, women as well. And so he amassed a few hundred people through those means. I don't think through they automatically believed him that he was a prophet. They were getting paid. So, and then they came back. And am I right about, like, in your understanding, am I making any errors in this assumption?
No. I remember the Surah Al-Nasr, I think. The verses say, when إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا, meaning when God's victory comes and people enter God's religion in droves. It always made me think, what a coincidence that people suddenly entered Islam in droves after Muslims won a war and took over, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was a war, after they took over their city. Now
Yes.
they enter in droves. So it's very clear. And like when a king or the leader of a tribe joins a religion, everyone under him joins that religion too. Is it because everyone is suddenly convinced when you convince the leader? No,
it's similar to like what happened to the American Indians in America when the Europeans came over and took over the place. They were just adopted into America. It's like they didn't have, a lot of them died in the process, but they didn't have any even right to, they had no ability to resist it. And so I would imagine it was something similar to that. But once again, so then Muhammad didn't live that long as a prophet with people believing him. I think it was only 10 years, something like that, before he passed away. And then I get to, so the Quran and the Hadith were written decades after he died, and we know that religion is used by elites to control people, and we know that they wanted to create some rules to govern a society. So my theory is that nobody really believed Muhammad was being visited by Jibril. This was just something concocted by the elites along the way, political elites or religious elites, because it serves their purposes. Religious elites can get prestige and power through this, and politicians obviously can govern and become extremely rich.
I think that was definitely happening around him, and even he had a paranoia about that. There's a lot of verses about the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the people who are pretending. They say that they believe and then they don't. I think a lot of them would, either for self-preservation or even selfish reasons, they may not be in danger, but they want to be part of the crowd that's making money or having some kind of power or whatever it may be. So I don't know if nobody believed him. I can't say that nobody believed him, but because you gave the example, like if you told me there's revelation and an angel spoke to you, I wouldn't believe. But back in those days, I bet a huge amount of people are already superstitious, so they would believe the concept, maybe not necessarily this person, So I think there's a lot more of people going along with it rather than believing it than we're led to believe.
Absolutely. Right. Well, anyway, it was just a thought that entered my mind, and there's no way to prove it, but I just wondered, why would anybody believe him? I know they say the only miracle was the crack in the moon, but that seems like also just something that was made up decades afterwards. And so I really, truly wonder how many people actually truly believed in his lifetime that he was being visited by Jibril, and how many people actually went along because it was very much a beneficial situation for many people.
Yeah, I hope that we someday get the answer to that, but I don't think we will.
Right. And the last thing before I jump off is another thought I had is, polytheism versus monotheism. So Islam started basically as the principal motivation of Islam is to bring people to monotheism, I believe, away from polytheism. Like if you were going to boil it down to one thing. But what is so bad about polytheism? I don't practice it, but inherently, what is so bad about it? Suppose somebody does worship 2 gods or 3 gods or whatever, and somebody else worships one. In and of itself, how did that become such a horrible thing for a human being to do? Because it's the worst. It's like the worst sin. I can think of a lot worse things than a guy who like would worship 2 or 3
Well,
gods.
according to Islam, like this is one of the worst, if not the worst sin ever. It's shirk, associating partners with Allah, because this Allah figure is jealous, doesn't like to people to worship anyone else besides him.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like you said, it's not just the I see a lot of apologists, they focus on the impossibility, the hypothetical impossibility of more than one captain of a ship, for example, or more than one leader of a city. So how could there be more than one Allah, more than one God?
Yeah.
But
Right.
that's not really it. It's mostly just that Allah, or the Allah character, really doesn't like polytheism. He doesn't like any other gods but him. And I think maybe partly because if you have other monotheists, you can kind of group them under your umbrella when it's
Yeah.
convenient, when he can tell the
Right.
Jews that they're part of him, part of his group whenever it's
Yeah.
convenient. But
Right.
yeah, it seems like such a petty thing for a God to focus on.
Right. And I did write one last thing I want to talk to you about, but I grew up in America, and I think you're in the Middle East, or a lot of your callers in the Middle East. And one thought that came to my mind is like, well, there's in Islam, like there's 2 types of toxicity. One is like from the place that you can live, but one is from your family, and or some people can have it from both. And like for me, like I didn't have any toxicity growing up in America because it's obviously very free, but I suffered so much from just the toxicity in my house from my mother and my father being extremely religious. And I think I suffered more from my mother. And in the times I've heard a lot of your callers, I've heard stories of people also like their mothers like were really a very negative force in their mental health and in their development. And so that's just like one thing is like, it's not just in Iran, the situation that's going on. And even in Pakistan, there was a massive bombing, killed over 100 people. But like just within the household, it's very toxic. Islam, to me, it's like a very dysfunctional situation. And we're coming up on, to me, the worst month of all, which is Ramadan. And I would really like to hear during that month, like your thoughts on it, and also your callers. And maybe I could also call. And I have a couple stories I'd like to share of how toxic it got in my childhood during that month. So.
I should make some videos specifically about Ramadan since it's coming up. I think that Islam gives power to mothers in all the wrong ways. It doesn't actually teach. I don't think it really teaches mothers how to be good mothers, particularly. And I'm not saying it's his job to teach mothers how to be good mothers, but it empowers them by giving them all these sentiments like heaven is under the feet of mothers. You have to respect your mother no matter what. Your parents, birrul walidain, you have to do good by your parents no matter what. You can't even exhale in front of them because that's offensive. These are all nice sentiments if you think about a good mother or a good father who's doing everything right and the kid is just a brat. But that's not how it is in real life. It's
my mother just 1 month ago told me something that really upset me, and for a month that I've dwelled on this thought. And what she told me was, she knows I'm not a practicing Muslim, but she told me Shahid, which is my real name. She said, I love Allah first and Muhammad and then you. And and that was like the end of the conversation. She said at the end of the conversation. And man, that really upset me. And I dwelled on that thought like for a long time. And I just thought like how like weird, like she's basically telling me like I'll never be her number one priority. I never was. Like this Islam and her rituals that she does and so forth are more important to her than I would ever be. And I think that sums it up for basically what Islam teaches mothers. And if anybody else has a different story.
I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how did that conversation get to that point? Like, what was the tone of her saying that?
We have had a very dysfunctional relationship for over 20 years, and it's been because of Islam. Like she has like within herself the ability to be a good mother, but Islam has just poisoned her, and it's alienated me in the process. And she has told me in my childhood, she asked me point direct, do I believe in this? And I said no. And she told me, then you're not my son. And then she didn't speak to me for close to a year. And I had to grow up at age 14, 15 in a household with my mother doing that. and it played with my emotions and so forth. So how did it get to that point? It's never not been that. And every time we talk, it gets to that point because like Islam really, like, it takes over, like, so when you get to that point, like you're a fundamentalist, it takes over so much of your mind that you lose the ability to even have normal conversations. Like her conversations are so punctuated with dhikr, dhikr, like you have to do remembrance of Allah in your words. And from time to time, I was trying to tell her, Mom, you don't have to always say, just let's talk, let's have a conversation. But to her, a conversation is just a chance to, like, remember Allah. It's almost like she doesn't even want to, you know what I mean? She's using me as a way to have a conversation. And I find that talking to Muslims is one of the most superficial conversations you can ever have. Because they don't want to go deep, and they don't want to actually, they're just too scared to think critically, and they're too scared to question things. And so I've come to think, like, I don't really mean, but like maybe it's just some people are stupid and some people are smart, meaning people like you are smart because you think critically and you can see things. And some people are just stupid, like they don't like to think. It hurts their brain. And unfortunately, that's kind of what's become of my father's passed away, but my mother, it's just been so toxic. And she's never given in 1 inch because Islam teaches you not to. Never give in to your son. Even if your son is suffering and telling you, Mom, please, I'm suffering. Like, I'm depressed. Can you not do this to me? They won't. It goes in one ear and out the other. And so it's just got to that point. And now it's with her being 80 years old, you get to the point where you realize your mother's going to die. You want to be around them. You want to take care of them. But they're just extremely toxic to be around. And sorry to ramble, but
oh, that's okay.
But yeah,
I'm
I don't
really
want to say.
sorry.
No, it's yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Do you have any more callers you're taking right now?
I do, but I just wanted to say before we move on, I'm really sorry that Islam has effectively robbed you of a lot of your relationship with your mom.
Yeah.
You're not wrong to think that Islam is hugely the culprit here.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned about, for example, Islam coming up in every conversation, I have experienced that with a lot of Muslims in my life too. It's not even because they think or know that I don't believe or anything like that. It's just a part of life that you can't go 2 sentences without mentioning Allah. Inshallah, we will do this. Inshallah, whatever other throwing in of Allah in there, and it creates this drift between you. That's all aside from if you have an abusive dynamic and all that other stuff. This alone creates a drift between you because it keeps reminding you in every few seconds you're talking to someone who thinks of the world completely differently.
Yeah. It just places an obstacle that's so unnecessary in the midst of a relationship that should be so unhealthy. And one last thing that just popped in my mind is like I just had my first kid. He's 3 years old. He's 3 months old, and I was gonna have him on, but I thought maybe it's probably not the best thing because, but I call him Apostate baby. But when I had my son, one of the things was my mother, like when she came to visit, and I don't spend, like I said, so toxic that I haven't been spending much. I've had to put up boundaries and like kind of make my own life. But when she came, like all she could say was, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. And all she could say was like, oh, Allah has blessed you with a baby. Allah has blessed you. But at no point did she actually talk about me. Like, I'm proud of you, my son, or congratulations. It was all praising Allah. Mm-hmm. It was like I hadn't done anything. Like the baby was even her way to praise Allah. And I just was sitting there just seeing how unnecessary it was. And
does it feel like she's like a shell of a person who just is full of Islam and that's pretty much it?
It feels like she's suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder and some other, it's like an illness to me. But what's sad to me is it's perfectly normal within the family and within our culture. Like within our family, she has other family members that are like that. And so I'm the outcast. Because I think like you and talk like you. So it's normalized. They all look at me like, what's wrong with this guy? So does she suffer? She suffers because of the consequences. Like women who do Islam don't work out. They don't go to the gym. They don't like do a lot of stuff. And so as they age, they suffer. Like when they do Islamic fasting, that's not the same as like keto and intermittent fasting and all that stuff. Like they suffer, and then they're not, so she suffers from that, and she suffers in the relationships like with me and so forth. But she has a community, and because there's a ritual every 5 seconds to fulfill, she like has her purpose in life. And it's very sad. She's, like I said, it's not, her relationship with me is not a priority. It's all about avoiding Allah's punishment. And I've heard the way you talk to question some on your Why Do You Believe series, and I loved it. And I started to try and, when I talk to people like my family, try and use your like approach instead of like trying to get angry and show them this, like just like ask them questions and why do you believe that? Like get them to and what they always get down to at the end is that, man, they just don't want Allah to pour boiling water in their mouth. Like that's it. And that is such a deeply sad motivation to live your life in. And these people ask, like, what is your purpose, Apostate Aladdin? What's your purpose? As if a purpose can't be like your family. It can't be basketball. It can't be like the guitar. I mean, there's so many, it could be internet, helping people. I mean, there's so many different purposes besides avoiding Allah pouring boiling water down your mouth.
I mean, I got to pause for a second and think about, if I genuinely believe that Allah exists, right, and He will pouring whatever lava down my throat, then their mentality makes sense. It makes sense that they look at me saying, I want to help people, this is my purpose in life, and they think, you absolute idiot, you're supposed to avoid going to hell. That's the one thing that matters. So it's hard to get that point across to them that I genuinely don't believe, objectively, no one has ever proven that this nightmare of a story will ever happen. And in fact, we have all the reasons to believe that it will never happen, and that it's just a version of another story that everyone tells. And so from their point of view, given what they think of as a fact, whatever answer you give as the purpose of life does not compare. It makes sense to avoid hell, but
absolutely.
It's hard to get them to understand that that's actually not what reality is.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, I think you may have some other callers, and I don't want to take up too much time. Like I said, I'll hope to call back in Ramadan with that story I have from Ramadan. But I appreciate your time, man, and good luck, and take care.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Shaun, for the call. I have a few comments to take, and then I will, or chats to highlight, and then I'll get to the next caller. The queue is pretty much full. I need to unpin the comment now. Unfortunately, the queue is full, so no more new callers. We have like 6 at least waiting to join, maybe 7. So before we get to that, so something about the previous call, we were talking, the caller had mentioned that some people are just stupid and they aren't able to think critically. Some people are not. I don't totally agree with that, but I get where he's coming from. I think there's more to it than just intelligence. Someone could be like, think of it as like in a video game when you're building a character and you've got like these multiple sliders of characteristics, and one person is, I don't know, more susceptible to fear. One person is more susceptible to this. One person has this quality more, whatever it may be. Someone could be extremely intelligent, but more susceptible to fear, or due to the circumstances of how they learned about the religion, it's too deeply ingrained to question it with the same mind that they would use to question biology if they're a doctor even. Like there are doctors who are very, very strictly adhering Muslims. It's very possible. They're studying the words of kafir scientists. They trust science. They trust the scientific method. They do a lot of research. And yet they still keep regurgitating points about how this biological miracle in the Quran and this and that. It's very possible. So I think it's not just about intelligence. I wouldn't say that anyone who is unable to see the issues with religion is stupid, or that. But I have to say that people who are more gullible are more susceptible to joining whatever it is that you're trying to sell them, or whatever it is that you taught them. So if as a person who's not very good at critical thinking or is a very gullible person, grew up in an atheist state that teaches some sort of militant atheism, they will grow up to parrot those talking points. They won't not believe in God because they thought about it. They won't believe in God because that's what they were taught. So I think it goes beyond just intelligence. Anyway, I will get to the next, live chats first and then the next caller. Doubting Thomas is saying COVID mask will be the trademark of apostasy. It's looking to be that way. Simon was talking about his religion. I forgot what the title was now, but he's saying we are all God. God is everything and we're all part of the divine. It's a journey of the spirit, knowing itself, eventually becoming whole and one again. There is no hell, only reconciliation. It sounds kind of familiar with some of what I've learned about Hinduism. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but it sounds interesting. And thanks for the super chat. ES1002 says that they noted a contradiction in the Quran, chapter 50, verse 30, where it says, it starts with Allah asking the hellfire if it's full yet. Halim talati, something, something like that. Allah is omnipotent. Doesn't he already know it's full or not? Yeah, I wouldn't hold this as like the gotcha of Islam has been disproven, because there's a lot of nonsense like this. Like, why would Allah have any of this simulation that we're living in if he knows all the results? That's a bigger point than just Allah talking to the fire and the fire giving him answers. Why does Allah need angels at all to write down what we're thinking and doing when he already knows all that, when he knew it since before we existed, when he wrote it all down? So there's a lot of this little like nonsensical stuff that if you have a critical mind, you would notice it's either metaphorical or for the purpose of the plot, but it doesn't serve any actual function. Allah asking the fire, are you full? Anyhow, let's get to the next caller. The next caller is Reiju. If you're ready, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I am good, thanks. What about yourself?
Good, good. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I found your channel through Reddit, the Exmuslim sub. And yeah, like I've just been watching you for the past few months. That sounded really creepy, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about a little bit like about my background and stuff as an ex-Muslim. I feel like I've been an ex-Muslim for as long as I can remember, really, which is really weird because I feel like there was a time that I believed in God, but it was like not like actual Islam God. I don't know how to explain, but it was like, I don't know, like I grew up in a very like religious household and stuff. I'm Bengali, so we had very like every week we would have like lessons where we would learn to read the Quran and stuff. And yeah, it was like my parents were quite strict in that regard, but I don't know, it's weird. Like they weren't too strict, but they were still strict with how they taught us Islam, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense.
I think so, yeah.
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 Okay. But yeah, so as a kid I was always like questioning like, things like my parents would be like, oh, you need to step into the bathroom with your right foot or whatever it was. And I would be like, but why? Like how? I don't understand like how God could be watching all of us at one time, if that makes sense. And yeah, like I don't know, I think as I grew up I just continued to just have more and more doubts. But at the same time, like I would, in like a really like bad situation, for instance, I'd be like, oh, please God, please Allah, please let this turn out okay and stuff. But then in the next second I'd be like pretending to pray. So yeah. And then yeah, I think at some point when I was like in my like late teens, I started to like think about it was more about like my purpose in life. Like I had like quite bad depression. throughout my teen years, and I started to just really think about like how I fit in this world, if that makes sense. And a big conclusion that I came to was that sorry, I'm like losing my words because I'm nervous.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just started to think that like if God exists, then like why would he make me a woman? I don't know how. I feel like I'm like all over the place, but I think growing up, like I was always questioning things like, oh, why do we have to wear the hijab, and why do we have to wear, like, be modest and stuff, and then men don't? Or like, I remember asking my mom, like, she was like, oh, but men are gonna look at you, and that's why like you're gonna get. We used to call it guna, so it's like sin basically. So you'll be sinning if men don't look at you. If men look at you, sorry. And so I was kind of like, but then why don't men just not look at you then? You know?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it was like little things like that. And then, yeah, so when I started to get like really, really bad depression in my late teens, part of that was because as a child, I was actually, sorry to turn it dark, but
That's okay.
I was molested by one of my teachers, my Quran teachers, basically, and I think that caused like a big part of my like self-esteem issues and stuff. But I also think that enforcing modesty, like my parents enforcing modesty on me as well, on top of that, also gave me a lot of issues with how I felt about my body and how I felt about myself as a woman, if that makes sense. And so that all kind of like tied into my depression. And I was like, well, why do I owe it to God? You know, like, why do I owe it to God to not sin? And like, why is it that he is making me feel like this? You know?
I'm so sorry that happened.
It's okay. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I've just like offloaded and then
That's okay. It's very understandable why you would, or how you would develop issues after something like that would happen. And I want to be careful with the language that I'm using here, because it's not you developing those issues. It's not your fault. However you feel about your body, however you feel about yourself and God, none of that is your fault. It's the fault of whoever did this. And if God existed, then God played a hand in this. But yeah, I'm really sorry that you had to go through it regardless.
Mhm. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I didn't really want to focus on that much, but
That's okay. We can
I
move
feel
on
like
from
it
that.
always, whenever I talk about being ex-Muslim, then it all kind of comes back to that. There was one thing that I really wanted to talk about today, and it was so my best friend from when I was a child, like since we were like 5 years old, we've been best friends. Recently, we kind of had a falling out, and she's Muslim. And basically, over the years, back when I was like 19, I basically told her that, first of all, that I'm bisexual, and second of all, that I'm ex-Muslim. And she didn't really take it that well, but it's almost like she was like covering up how she really felt about it, if that makes sense, because she just really wanted to be like the bigger person in the situation, I guess. So yeah, and I also told her about like my past like molestation and everything, and her reaction was kind of like, oh, but that's not Islam. You know, like he doesn't represent Islam. And yeah, it was an awkward moment, and I just kind of reacted by like just changing the subject because I didn't want to hear it. And so, and at the time as well, I didn't really fully explain to her that there was more reasons why I left Islam. I just kind of blamed it on him and then kind of went along with it. But then there's so many other kind of layers to it that I obviously didn't explain to her. And about me being gay as well, she was kind of like, oh, but like my religion says that I can't agree with that. And what I just don't understand to this day is that I don't understand how you cannot believe, how you cannot agree with someone's existence.
Sorry, can you say that again? How you cannot agree with someone's existence?
Yeah, like I'm saying, like, because she's like, well, my religion says that I shouldn't agree with homosexuality. So what I can never
what
wrap
does
my head
agree
around.
with mean? Like, what does agree with mean? Like, acknowledge that it exists, or like acknowledge that it's okay to be?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand what that argument is. Like, I was coming out to her as a friend, and her response to me was that my religion says that I can't agree with homosexuality.
But yeah, I always ask people to explain what they mean by agree with. It's like
Yeah.
saying, I don't agree with gravity. Like,
Yeah.
sure, you can disagree that I don't know, you can not acknowledge it, but are you saying that it doesn't exist, or that you think it exists but it's bad? Like I like to get them to actually articulate it a little bit better, but I imagine in that moment it would be shocking to you, regardless of which one she meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just it was a really weird situation, but at the time I was young and I was kind of like, okay, well, she's still my friend. She can believe what she believes, and I'm just gonna coexist beside her. And this is not just like a friend. Like, it's not like a distant friend. This is like my friend that I would see like every week. So over time, it just became more and more taxing to be her friend, I think. And basically, over the past couple of years, she's been a little more active in the mosque and stuff. And she's been like kind of asking me to go like with her to the mosque, and like knowing about my background with it, knowing about my trauma with it as well. And I'm like shaking because I'm nervous, sorry. But yeah, so like it's as if like I said it to her once and then she just put it behind her and she never really wanted to think about it again. And it's a weird situation. So because I hadn't like, so this is before I started like watching your content, and like just generally like I didn't really want to confront the fact that I was ex-Muslim myself, I think. And I didn't want to confront the fact the like issues within Islam. So I would go to the mosque with her, and I would, we would do like little like events and stuff for children and stuff like that. And I didn't really understand like how insidious that is, and how much that was affecting me as well, and how much of myself I was giving so that I could like just make my friend happy, if that makes sense. And yeah, so over the past few months, I've just been kind of doing a little more thinking and stuff, and trying to like value myself more in our relationship, if that makes sense. And so a few months ago, like I started going to like more like gay events and stuff, and like just like little parties and stuff like that. And so I would always ask her, like, do you want to come with me? Do you want to, like, we can go to this event. We can, like, she knew that I drank and everything. She would come to me to like other parties and stuff all the time. And she never really had a problem with me doing other haram things like drinking and smoking or whatever. But when it came to me asking her, like, oh, do you want to come to this event that is specifically for gay people and where I can go and make friends as well, like, friends that are also like me, or possibly like meet a girl or something like that. She was always kind of like, she would never outright say like, no, I don't want to come with you. No, I don't agree with this. Like she would just kind of avoid it and then eventually just be like, oh, sorry, I can't come tonight. And so she continued to do this like over the past few months. And then finally, like, in December something happened, and she did it for the last time basically, and it was a much bigger event that day. And so I pulled her up on it, and I said, like, well, do you have a problem with my friends because they're gay? Is that a possibility? Like, because we hadn't spoke about the issue of me being gay for a long time. Not that it should even be an issue. And she was kind of like, well, I've never said that I have a problem with your friends being gay or like you being gay. And I was like, oh, well, I guess we've forgotten about our conversation from years ago. So, okay, whatever. I'm sorry if I'm like rambling, then just stop me.
No, you're okay.
But yeah, so it was just a weird situation, and she didn't actually respond to me for a while. Like, she responded after like 2 weeks or something like that. So it's obvious that she was like trying to figure out the best way to like respond to me, if that makes sense. And then basically one of her family members shared something about the Qatar like controversy basically, and it was a post about how she agrees with Qatar's stance on gay people. And I know my friend, I know that if her family was to post something, if someone that close to her was to post something and she didn't believe in it, then she would pull them up on it. So I asked her straight up and I said, yeah, like, this person posted this thing. What do you think about it? And she kind of took an issue with that. And she said, well, that's not my post, first of all, but I also agree with it. So at the moment, I'm like, I haven't responded to that message. I don't really know how to respond. A lot of my other friends have been saying just to like not waste my time anymore with this friend. But I don't know. It's a really long, like, I think we've been friends for almost 20 years now. So it's a really weird situation for me.
Well, how do you feel towards her?
I'm really not sure, because at the moment I just feel sad about what she said, and I feel sad about, like, when I think about all of these like things together, all of these events together, I just feel like I'm losing her in a way, and I'm growing out of our relationship. But yeah, I think obviously I still love her as a friend because it's been so long, and yeah, like we never really had other issues other than this, and sometimes it just feels like I'm making an issue out of nothing.
You're not, no. And it's okay if you feel like you don't owe her that you love her going forward just because you have been friends for so long. And I'm not saying there to make her out to be the bad guy or the bad girl here. I sympathize with both of you. You more obviously than her, because you're the one who's being wronged here. But I can tell from the way that you're telling the story, or from what I'm gathering, is she's not maliciously trying to push you away. She's really struggling to reconcile her religion and, you know, her reality of life with you, and all of these challenges to her faith are challenges. They are kind of challenges to her faith, because those are the moments that she was trained for, you know, by religion. Those are the moments where she should feel guilty and shameful for tolerating someone like you, is how she learned, you know.
Yeah.
She doesn't sound like a bad person. She sounds like she's backed up against the wall. And, you know, when you think of the afterlife versus a human friend, unfortunately, you're the one who is going to be harmed in the process. And I'm really sorry that that is happening to you. And I'm not advising you to have anger towards her, or to, like, you know, cut her off and feel bad about her as a person. But it's okay to look out for yourself first. Doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but just don't feel like you're making a big deal out of nothing. You should be comfortable around your friends. You shouldn't feel like your friend has almost a latent personality, like a side of her that you're not sure of till it comes out.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel when you're hanging out with her?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost like I can't have a real conversation with her sometimes. So a few months ago, again, I had a conversation with her where I said to her, it was after like all the mosque stuff, and I kind of came out to her again as an ex-Muslim, and I said, I don't believe in God. I don't really align with Islam at all, no matter what my culture is and how I was brought up and stuff. I just want to leave it behind me. And she was kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like she was like, yeah, like I support you and everything, but there was something that she was holding back, if that makes sense. Like she didn't want to hurt me, but at the same time, she obviously felt something else. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you are making sense.
Mhm.
It really does sound like she's not a spiteful, mean, hateful person, but it still doesn't mean that you're not hurt by this, right? It's okay to feel hurt by this. It's okay to not be comfortable with that situation, and it's okay to put some distance if you feel like that's kind of what you need to do to look out for yourself. You know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to talk about.
Well, I never had a friend who I've been friends with for 20 years, so I can't comprehend your loss to the same extent. A lot of people in my life, they come and go, and I have friends who I've been friends with for many years, but not to the extent of 20 years. Maybe part of it is because I am bad at keeping touch with people. It's not because, people hate me and they move away. It's just I'm bad at keeping in touch with people. So point is, I can't comprehend how big of a loss that is. So maybe that's not giving me the right perspective here. Like maybe I'm minimizing it a little bit in my head, but I'm not. I know this is a big deal. But it's okay to think of friends as not permanent. Like some people stay, some people come and go, and what you need at each stage in your life might be different. So you never know. Like I've had friends who I've stopped talking to because I can tell that they're religiously headed in a very different direction than I. And then years later, I look them up and they're, less, they're hiding their apostasy even less than I am. So
Yeah,
you never know if she's someday going to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm sorry about the way I handled that, or I have some thoughts or whatever. But in the meantime, it's okay to put some distance between you two, if you're not comfortable hanging out with her.
yeah,
Yeah. And I hope that you're making friends at these events and other spaces where there are people who are, more like you, I guess, in the queer community.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying my best. I think when this whole situation kind of like became a big thing for me, my biggest fear was that I'm in my 20s and I worry that I'm not going to be able to make friends, because you don't get chances like you do when you're in school and stuff. Like you're kind of forced to like be with people all the time when you're in school, and you just have to make friends. And so after school, I found it really, really hard to like actually make friends. But yeah,
Same. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a tough situation, but it's I feel like a few weeks ago I started thinking about calling into your channel about this, and I was like, yeah, there's so much stuff that I wanted to talk about, and now it's like a few weeks down the line and I'm like, damn, I forgot everything.
That's okay. That's okay. And you can always call back again. I mean, you've shared a lot already. It's not like you forgot everything you wanted to say. But I'm glad that you did call in today. I am.
Thank you. Great.
I don't really have any questions for you, but if there's anything else that's on your mind that you want to talk about, if not, then I look forward to maybe hearing from you again, hearing how it went with your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
cool. My mind's got like drawn a blank, so
that's
yeah.
and it must
Cool.
be.
I'll
I'm
probably
guessing
call
it's
in
late where
again
you
soon.
are.
Sorry, what did you say?
I'm guessing it's late where you are. I think, but
Yeah, it's like 12.
okay. Well, yeah. I hope you have a good night then.
Thanks. You too. Enjoy the rest of your stream.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone in the chat.
All right. Thank you to the caller yet again. Yes, it was a great call. I will read a couple of comments and then get to the next caller. The queue is a little bit shorter than it was before, but that's okay. We still have plenty of callers to talk to today. So ES1002, thanks again for the super chat. They were saying, my mom says don't shower at Maghrib, shaitan is there. So I've heard these, these might be less common among Arabs, but I've heard them from my a Bengali friend of mine, for example, about how some people believe that shaitan or jinn or whoever, invisible creatures can see you while you shower. So there are Muslims who shower with their clothes on. This is not like the majority interpretation or anything, but that does exist. And it's not that far-fetched to extrapolate it from, jinn live in cold, damp places and dark places. They live in bathrooms. Therefore, don't expose your body as a woman in the bathroom because the jinn will see you in the dark, whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm sorry for the people who had to go through that. And I don't like it when people just dismiss accounts like this by saying, yeah, that's not real Islam. Like that's obviously that's not Islamic. If you look at the verse, whatever, blah, 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 but you're missing the point. People live and die experiencing this Islam. I don't give two craps what you think Allah meant to say, because Allah never said anything. Allah doesn't exist. The concept of Allah really is man-made. People live through this. It is a mutation of Islam. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that too. And this is a snarky super chat. Muslims read the Quran, ex-Muslims understand it. No, I think some Muslims do understand the Quran, but I do agree with the sentiment that if you do understand the Quran, you're more likely to disbelieve. Yeah, so what else? So I've noticed there's some debates going on in the live chat. I'm not really paying a lot of attention to that at the moment. But Jawad was saying, did you ever speak to an actual person of knowledge, a scholar? Yes. Yes, I have. And I'm more than happy to speak to more of them in live streams, because I think that is the most beneficial when people get to witness these conversations. Because I've said it so many times, I've been asked that same question. There's this gatekeeping mentality in Islam that you need to speak to a scholar. You can't just, you're just talking to people who don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I have. But instead of just telling everyone of all the conversations that I've had with all the different scholars from different Islamic backgrounds, I would much rather going forward broadcast them so that we can have the conversations for people to witness. Because if you would witness all the conversations that I had about religion in my lifetime, I wish I had a good memory, because I could write an entire book just based on the conversations that I've had ever since I was a child about Islam. But I guess this is why I have a YouTube channel now. Yeah. Anyway, going back to the callers. Who is the next caller? So if you're waiting in the private chat, yes, some of you already have done that, but if you haven't, please give me a brief introduction of who you are, an overview. Anyway, we'll get to the next caller now. First, I'll read a couple of comments. So there's a Muslim in the live chat having a discussion, saying Jawad says he does. He's talking about Hamza's dead. He does an arena thing where other people are on the panel, AA, or even you guys should go on there and hear him. So I've only seen like a sliver of a segment from one of those shows, and I am sorry, but I can't take a bunch of men seriously if they have like a lion's roar as their intro, and it's called Hamza's Den, who dares enter. Like that was their thumbnail or slogan or whatever. What kind of conversation do you expect to have when these people present it as some kind of arena or den where you like throw in a warrior and you have some kind of battle? Calm the frick down. Like it's not that serious. Like you guys are not that cool. The only reason they have an audience is because, I'm sorry, but a lot of their audience is pretty gullible and easy to sway, and they're just ready to rally behind whoever shouts Islam the loudest. So they look like a bunch of fools. Like, no offense, but that's not how you present a talk show. Hamza's Den, who dares enter? What the hell is that stuff? So I think that would be a waste of time. I'd be happy to talk to any of them one-on-one, but to enter this kind of platform where the whole point is to throw some gladiators at each other is what they think of themselves, then I am good. Thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure what the context of that was because I was not paying attention. Wait, aren't we what Allah's right hand possesses? Thanks for the super chat, but no one's right hand possesses this at the moment. Anyway, let's get to the... Okay, this is horrible. I didn't know this. Hamza was very rude to a woman who says she was assaulted. I did not witness this, but if that's true, then that sounds horrible. Anyway, I will get to the next caller. Who is the next caller? What is my queue looking like? Yeah, thanks everyone for watching so far, by the way. We still have 3 more callers, I think. The next caller is Lana. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Great. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Like
No
everyone
worries. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you found my channel and why you called in today.
Yeah, so I found your channel through friends of Exmuslim, Abdullah Samir, through that. Yeah, you're a guest on the live stream.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think I just liked how calm you were, and that's why I continue to watch your channel. Really, I like how patient you are with people, like people who do believe, and people who believe in lots of different things. I think that's quite admirable.
Thank you.
Because I personally, I find it quite difficult to engage with Muslims. I've sort of found myself in some situations where like it's not being like a debate, but it's being like a conversation. And yeah, I find it like emotionally draining, I think, to hear them say things that, I mean, yeah, indoctrination is quite powerful. So it's like I've still got those emotional ties to Islam. So yeah, that's something I enjoy about your conversations with people.
I'm glad you do. And I too do find a lot of these conversations emotionally draining. So you're not alone there. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was finished with
Yeah.
with that. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to like talk about my experience with Islam and leaving Islam. So I was born and raised Muslim, and I was Muslim for like, let's say over 29 years. And I've not been Muslim for just over 6 months, I think.
Okay.
I was raised quite conservative. Like my dad was like very, very, like he was a member of I think it's called Tabligh Jemaah, right? Like he got kind of sucked into that group. Like they're quite big in the UK. And I kind of ended up being raised with like very strict dress code. I like wasn't allowed like a social life because I was a girl. Like I had to be protected and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My brothers kind of went through a lot of religious trauma because they had to go to these like meetings, like these Tabligh Jamaat meetings, like and like I've heard like such like horror stories from them, like about like, you know, whole days where they like had to sit on their legs and they weren't allowed to move, and they had to like ask permission to go to the toilet, like you know, like they were in primary school or something, like not being able to sleep, like being kept up all night, like because of like listening to khutbahs and then praying and then like listening to khutbahs and going to classes during the day. And like it was, when I think about it now, it just sounds like cult sort of brainwashing that they went through. Like one of my brothers is not a Muslim. Like it's not because of this trauma or anything. Like he has like entirely logical reasons for it, but like he ended up leaving the faith like a long time ago. And for me, I think I had quite a bit of religious trauma, and that my religious trauma like almost kept me tied to being a Muslim. Because I hear a lot of like Muslims like say things like, oh, you know, you left because of your trauma. And like for me, it was the opposite. For me, it was like despite my trauma, I was like so desperate to hang on to my faith because it was like that's my reason. Like I was so trusting that Allah like loved me, and like that everything that I'd gone through, I was going to be rewarded for my patience, and like the awful things that I'd seen my mum have to go through. Like my dad had multiple wives, and it like broke my mum having to witness like this guy that she loved, that she converted for basically, like marrying like these different women and stuff. And she was like just told, you know, you have to, this is just what Islam says, like, you know, you're a woman, you just have to deal with it. And so like having to, sorry, I know I'm rambling.
That's okay.
Like seeing all that kind of trauma, basically I was just like, my mom has to have gone through that for a reason. Like, and I would also tell her that as well, like, you know, you've been patient like for all these decades, like you've gone through it, you know, like God's going to reward you, and like God's going to reward us, and you know, like God is good. And you know, I was also saying things like, you know, what we've gone through isn't Islam, like it's just because unfortunately it got into the hands of somebody who, you know, misunderstood Islam. That was like my whole thing. So I like, for me, the trauma was separate. And like once I kind of left that sort of incredibly conservative like atmosphere, and like I got married, I ended up getting married to my first cousin, which is, yeah, yay. Like I kind of was like determined to like find my own Islamic identity, like to find my own relationship with God, and like leave that trauma behind. So that like it like really like upsets me, and it's part of the reason I think why I can't talk to Muslims and can't be like open with Muslims about the fact that I'm not Muslim anymore. Is like it's so like integral to my journey is the fact that I had like so much trauma associated with Islam, and I was brought up in a really traumatic, like Islam central, like there's so many things that like I'd be here forever if I went into everything, but basically like I find it like maybe this is a bit extreme, but it's like I find it like personally offensive when they say that it's like, oh, you leave Islam because of the trauma. It's like, no, you actually have no idea what you're talking about. Because most people, I feel like they try to hang on to it despite the trauma. And when I ended up realizing that I couldn't be Muslim anymore, it was like my whole life fell apart. Like I was like, oh my God, like how could I have gone through all of that and like it's all for nothing kind of thing. And that's not how I think now, but it was like the whole idea that all the pain that I went through and everything, like I'm not going to be rewarded for it. Like my mum's not going to be rewarded for it. Like, you know, everything that I built my life on, or like it's not real. Like I think sometimes Muslims, and it's not through any fault of their own, like I don't think Muslims are stupid. There's a lot of people who I still love in my family who are Muslim, and they are not stupid. It's indoctrination, and it's a powerful thing. Sorry, I think I've forgotten the point of what I was going to say, but I think they just don't realize like how like horrendous it is for your whole worldview to fall apart. And yeah, I guess sometimes I wish like Muslims could be a bit more understanding of that. Because like we don't want to leave Islam. Like I didn't. It took me a long time to like stop wearing a hijab. Like it took me a long time to like go outside without covering my arms, like let alone take a sip of alcohol or like have not halal meat. I was still buying halal meat like after like weeks after I left Islam. I had no interest in, you know, sinning or living like some kind of hedonistic lifestyle. Like that was not interesting to me. Yeah, I feel like I've gone all around the houses like with this, but yeah.
No, you're making a lot of sense. And I relate to you more than you can imagine. I noticed from the very beginning when you mentioned your brother and how he left Islam, you said for logical reasons it's not because of trauma, and you emphasized it very quickly without me even saying anything. And I noted that down because I felt like that was a reaction to something. And then you told us what that thing was, that you heard it a lot, that Muslims say you left because of trauma. And it's almost like automatic in you that you had to give that context so that nobody assumes what you now think is the default, or Muslims think is the default. You left because of trauma. Your brother left because of trauma. So you making that distinction was noteworthy to me, that you made it a point to mention that he had his reasons. It's not like me, or not the same way that I left. But yeah, and you mentioned trauma made you stay. I had a different experience where I got religious trauma because I stayed. It's not like trauma didn't make me leave. I stayed and I clung on, and the longer I clung on, the more traumatized I was, the more hurt I was. And I hate how the word trauma is almost seen as a filthy word in this space because of how Muslims weaponize it often. They say you left because of trauma, or it's almost like that word doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, like what is trauma? It's a placeholder for not a good reason to leave. I'm guilty of sometimes thinking of the word trauma that way. Like it comes up in a different context, and I realize it has a meaning that has nothing to do with whether you left a religion or not. But that's the only context. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're saying it's what?
I agree with you. It's almost like in this context, it kind of feels like trauma just means like, oh, you know, you had to get up for Fajr, like so what? Like, oh, you know, somebody was mean to you, or like I don't know. It's trauma doesn't actually mean it's as if they just
they
think
also
it's just something
minimize
small.
they also minimize what
Yeah.
that trauma is or what it means. Like first
Mhm.
they minimize what they just use trauma as a word that means bad reason to leave Islam, and then they
Mhm.
belittle what that trauma is. Like, oh, you thought prayer was too hard, you didn't have the discipline for it. Like that's oh, you got traumatized because you had to pray 5 times a day. Like
Yeah.
they really don't understand the depth of it, and a lot of them don't even try to. Some do,
Yeah.
but you had said
Mhm.
something. You said that I wish Muslims could be understanding of that.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of them, some do again, and I want to make that point. Some of them
Mhm.
are watching right now,
Mhm.
but a lot of them, if they were understanding of that, that would be the empathy that they require to develop or to access or to acknowledge to realize the flaws in Islam and leave it.
Mhm.
So it's almost like it's biased because the ones who do have the empathy and do take the time to listen often end up realizing how Islam or religion in general is not a fair system that God set up. So it's hard, it's rare to find someone who's empathetic and a believer and somehow not tormented by how their belief is. Like if you're an empathetic Muslim, I feel bad for you because that was me, like I was that, and that's what gave me trauma, being an empathetic Muslim.
Mhm.
And the ones without empathy are the ones who can easily sling around the whole, mockery of what you went through and just pinpointing, you left because of trauma this, trauma that. I hate that word.
Yeah. I also kind of feel like what upsets me is like, even if I left because of trauma, like, and even if my mum had left or my brother had left because of trauma, like, actually, it would have made sense. Like, I remember walking into a room in my house when I was very young and seeing my mum just like keeled over, like just crying her heart out. And I'd never seen her cry before. And anyone who's seen their mum cry, like, knows that it's like, yeah, it's a horrible thing. And the reason why she was crying was because my dad had remarried this other woman that he'd married like a bunch of times and got divorced from. And like, if she'd left because of that, that would have been a good reason. Like, that was traumatic and it broke her. And it took her a very long time to recover from a really traumatic experience because she was gaslighted into thinking that the problem was with her, that she wasn't a good enough Muslim, that she couldn't accept that like her husband was out with other women. Like she couldn't trust herself. But in that moment she was like allowing herself to feel that pain that she like never allowed herself to feel. And like if she had left, and if she had left for that reason, that would have been a good reason. And if I had left because of some of the things that I've gone through, they would have been good reasons. And the same for a lot of ex-Muslims who have had trauma. It's not a bad thing to leave because of trauma, I think.
I think here's me role playing an empathetic believer who someone told me they left. Say I have they insinuated that it's because of trauma or something, or I think that it's because of trauma. I would feel extra bad for them because I would see that the circumstances that Allah had decided for them set them up to fail to be a Muslim. Like if Allah put this obstacle in your way, um, be it having rational questions that cannot be answered by religion, or going through a traumatic event that ties to religion and not wanting any association with that anymore, and then He's going to torture them eternally for example, not wanting to see a sheikh again after one had molested her, and then He's going to torture her on top of that. I would feel terrible, and I'd feel like confused. Why is Allah doing this, and how is His eternal justice system not accounting for people? They factor in so much before having an emotional belief. because people don't believe because they've analyzed the facts of the religion and, you know, done a dissertation in philosophy. Most people don't believe for that reason. They believe because they're scared, because they love, because indoctrination. It's all about emotions. So what kind of evil God would this be, who puts trauma in your life and then punishes you for not going against your instincts and doubling down on religion?
Yeah, that the first time I spoke to somebody who was an ex-Christian, and they said like, God's an evil God, and this was when I was like questioning, and I wasn't questioning with a view to leave, I was questioning with a view to stay. And like I had such a visceral reaction when they said like God's an evil God. I was like, how can you say that? But the more I started to go further into my journey of questioning and reading and stuff, the more that like echoed into my head. And I know you mentioned this this thing of, you know, like everybody's in heaven and watching the people in hell. That always like strikes me, because from being quite young, I remember my dad giving me like a description of that, and like he was like smiling as he was saying it, and like he was saying like, oh, you know, like the Queen of England's gonna be in hell, and all like really random thing to remember. But like I remember being a kid and thinking like, that sounds really strange, like that doesn't sound appealing to me. But then like as I went further and as I found more and more of that kind of thing, I was like, yeah, like Allah's an evil God. Like maybe Allah is like Shaitan. That was kind of like what I was thinking. Like maybe like there is a God, because I wasn't prepared to accept that there's no God. I was like, maybe there's a God, but like Allah and Islam is like the religion of Shaitan, like that kind of thing. Because I just couldn't. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if Muslims want to do the right thing, if you don't spread Islam, then people have a higher chance of either having the excuse of, well, I've never heard of Islam, so I can't be tortured for this, or if you believe that they will be tested in the afterlife, whatever that means, then at least they lived a life unburdened by Islam. I think that would be the least evil thing to do. But spreading it's like Shaitan in the narrative. I'm going to take down as many people as I can with me, right?
Yeah, it's like, let people be innocent. Like if people are innocent and naive and they go to heaven, like let them go to heaven. Like what are you doing?
Yeah. Or if they're going to be tested in the afterlife, what quality are you testing about them then? Like how much they would have believed if they had been told about Islam? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah. So you said that like you struggle. It's emotionally draining to have conversations with Muslims about this kind of stuff. And I said me too, but obviously to varying degrees. And I'm privileged that the kind of the flavor of trauma that I've been through doesn't completely get in the way of me still having these conversations. But that's just because, you know, I didn't go through exactly what you went through. And yeah, I'm sorry that you went through all that.
Thank you. And yeah, I don't know, everybody's had like, I think, a difficult time leaving all of this behind. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like people like you and yeah, the other sort of ex-Muslim activists, I suppose, like I feel like you're really helping us kind of feel a bit of unity and a bit of like there's light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. So yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to hear that.
All right, I'll let you move on to the next caller.
I'm glad you called, and I hope that you feel better after the call than you did before it.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you for the call. We still have 2 more callers. I'll get to some comments, and then we'll get to the final 2 callers. What's Poppin has requested, and so have other people before. Please make a Discord server. I would like to, but I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. Like Discord servers, I mean, I'm not very well versed on how to manage one and all that stuff, and I don't think I have the time or energy to be able to dedicate the right amount of energy into this. And I don't want to create a space that's unmoderated, that's possibly unsafe, right? Like I'd have to think about, how do I let people into a Discord server? How do you vet them? How do you make sure that no one's in there trying to harm them? Because it could be almost like a honeypot, in a bad way, you know, that would, it would be a target for certain kinds of people to attack there. So it's a bigger responsibility than it seems on the surface. So unfortunately, unless someone, not just someone, unless I have a team of people who volunteer to do it and I can vet them and all that kind of stuff, then I don't think I can venture into doing that. Someone is asking about their name on the live stream. I will blur it after the fact. It might take a few hours, but I will blur it. And again, Joed is saying, there's no way you think deep. I've been kind of in the corner of my eye noticing this debate going on, saying there is no way you think deep down Islam isn't true, no matter how emotional you feel about it. Let me tell you what this looks like from the outside. This is what it looks like when Muslims say a kafir is someone who knows Islam is the truth but denies it. You look like someone, and not specifically you, but the person, the placeholder you, looks like someone who's throwing a tantrum because the other person doesn't agree with them. They cannot even comprehend the possibility that the other person, be it right or wrong, you know, someone could be absolutely wrong and there is a God and this person is absolutely wrong. But you're telling them you're self-delusional. Anyone, you either agree with me or you're delusional or a liar. You don't see how that makes you look like from the outside? It sounds like a Muslim, like not, I don't want to say it that way. It sounds like someone who believes in Islam and promotes it is just a sore loser. There is no debate in the world where you go into it and you think that you won because the default position is either you agree with me or you're a liar or self-denying deluded person. You have to accept the possibility that no matter how wrong the other person is or right, they could be honest about their position. Islam kills that possibility. Islam really gives the impression that people who have received the message, whatever the hell that means, in its true form, and they don't agree or don't believe, are lying to you or to themselves. So Islam and Muslims are calling everyone else but them delusional or liars. You don't see how that makes you look? In no debate, in no conversation ever does that fly. But somehow people are sleeping on this fact that Islam is calling everyone delusional, and Muslims go around actually believing that. Like, you really cannot comprehend that the other person genuinely does not believe. And that is what got me out of Islam. That I realized people, even if I am a believer and I think Islam is probably true, or at the time I believed there is no other possibility but Islam being true, I can comprehend that someone else might disagree, and not because they have ulterior motives or because they're delusional. Because the summation of their life experiences, the summation of the loosely defined proof that we call proof for religion, that I knew even as a believer isn't convincing to an outsider. They could have heard the same spiel from someone else and believed in whatever something else, or not believed in my spiel. I can get that. And that's what made me snap out of it. That's when I realized this is all an illusion. And to answer this last comment before I move on to the next caller, it still occupies your life. It just shows the power of Allah and Islam. It shows the power of an idea. It shows the power of the masses, of gullible masses especially. And it shows the actual harm that religion causes these days. You've been listening to all these stories, all these people talking about how religion has harmed them, how it touched their lives, how it has turned the people that they love against them or made them distant. That's why it's important to talk about it. Not because it occupies my mind all the time. It's because it occupies Muslims' minds all the time, and they make it everyone else's problem. And maybe for a good reason. Like, if you genuinely believe that this is the actual, paradigm, that there is a heaven and hell and all that stuff, of course you should make it everyone else's problem if you care about other people. You can empathetically want to spread Islam to make sure that people don't go to hell and all that kind of stuff. But from the outsider's point of view, you're just making it everyone else's problem. And that's why we're talking about it. It's not that hard to understand, but for some people it might be. Anyway, I will get to the last two callers. First, I will take Modern Ape. Aren't we all? Modern Ape, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Well, I'm really enjoying all your work and
Thank you.
live streams. Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome what you're doing, and listening to a lot of people, your previous callers. I definitely don't have a such an interesting story as they do. I'm in my 40s. Seems like many people are a bit younger, but yeah, I was part of my intro is like I've been born and raised in Islam, like pretty deep Islam, like Sunni. My dad was like an imam, like learned Arabic on his own, and like gave khutbah and all that stuff, right? And took me around all the halaqas, and I wouldn't say like I am like super knowledgeable, like a scholar or anything at all, but it's been like 40 years kind of immersed in this. I was gonna mention how it's just weird. I guess my position now is I would say mostly agnostic. I'm not yet to the point where I can just say there's nothing to Islam, and I've kind of put it behind me completely. I still feel some sort of what would you say, like you want to be confident that you've given it every chance that it deserves, so that there's kind of no chance that, kind of Pascal's wager in a way, but like that someone could say, well, if you only had investigated it for a little more and put more effort in, you would have seen that as the truth. But of course, no matter what religion you are, you could say the same thing about all the other religions that someone hasn't researched, I guess. But yeah, when I grew up, I was, as a teenager and young adult in college, I was like in MSA and like actively trying to convert people and spread the deen and all that stuff. And, recently, like maybe a couple weeks ago, I saw that one of my university professors had passed away, and he happened to be Muslim, but non-practicing. And I remembered going to like one of his house parties he had with some of the faculty that I knew when I was there. And I remember kind of looking at him with contempt.
Looking at the faculty?
This individual Muslim guy.
Okay.
Because I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
He was Muslim, but he was like giving out wine, and he was a really nice guy, like a soft, kind-hearted guy, like from India, Pakistan area, in the U.S. university. But I just looked at him with contempt, like, what kind of Muslim can you be? And now I just feel like such an asshole. Anyway, I should probably change the subject. I didn't think I would get that emotional about that.
That's okay. You don't have to feel self-conscious about that. I'm glad that you felt safe enough to want to talk about it. You said earlier that you don't think your story is as interesting as everyone else's. I disagree. I think everyone's story is interesting.
Yeah, maybe I was just breaking the ice, but some people had some pretty heavy stuff growing up, right?
Yeah, and we can't compare, because then we'll feel like what we went through or what we did or what we feel is just not as grand as the other people. So,
Yeah.
you know, then I shouldn't talk about my stuff, because people have topped it up, like many times over during these streams, unfortunately. But I'm sorry that you felt that way towards him, and
yeah, it just kind of bothered me, and it really got me choked up a few weeks ago, because like I knew it probably passed away, but I kind of confirmed that I saw his face, and I just remember how, as a Muslim, we're so sure that we're right, and Islam is not as easy to dismiss, in my opinion, as Mormonism and some other things that are, to me, quite easy to dismiss, like I mean, not to get into it too much, but just Mormonism has many things that are problematic, and Christians with their young Earth situation, and the global flood is quite simple to dismiss. And my career is in science, and I've
hey, but
spent a
don't
lot
you
of
think
time.
that there's the equivalent of that in Islam? You're just a bit more resilient towards it.
I think that may be part of it, but there's some things that have made it, even till now, like a little bit difficult to completely put behind me. Like in Islam, it doesn't specifically say there's a global flood. Some of the things that are kind of ridiculous that I came across, even as a young person, reading Islam. I'd learn Islam in my free time and memorize Quran and all that. I thought was a good way to spend time. But things about like hadith. There's many things in there that are very problematic, about like the child will look more like whichever parent finish first while they're sleeping together, and it's like, no, that's completely. But of course you can kind of say, well, that's a weak hadith. We know that all hadith are not 100%, and even my dad was like, even the Bukhari and all that are not 100%. There's new evidence that shows that many of them are not as strong as they thought they were, right? But in the Quran itself, I don't know. It just seems like many things are so vague that it's very difficult to hold it to a position. And then even if you do, it's sort of like, well, maybe this is symbolic. It doesn't mean this like literally.
It's very slippery.
Yeah, and then there's some of that numerology stuff that still kind of bothers me. I think I was talking to someone on Reddit, and he was like, "Yeah, it's interesting. The day of the week thing, the ratio between the day the Earth was created to the universe is like the similar ratio to the. I mean, it's pretty close to the actual formation of the Earth to the age of the universe in the ratio, of course. But then you think about it, it's like, okay, the Monday, like in 2 days, and the 7 days of the week and all that, or 6 days, like mathematically, you're picking out of 6 days, right? Even the Christians say that God rested on the seventh day, right? And the guy was like, well, what about Surah Nahl says it's like 13, and that's the haploid number for bees, which is Surah bees. And I'm like, man, like why did so,
I'm sorry I'm laughing. I know that it can seem plausible to people sometimes. I get it. But yeah, I guess I'm at the point where I can laugh about it, but I don't mean to do that in a rude way. But obviously, when you try to look at it from the outside, if you go searching for patterns, you will find them.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And like I watched the video about the golden ratio. There's I think a YouTuber called Joe Scott, maybe. I don't know if you know him.
No.
Science stuff, but
okay.
I don't remember like the whole takeaway from the video, but like the golden ratio that people have been saying, or many people do believe, that it's something that occurs in nature, and like if you use it in design and all this kind of stuff,
it's
healing
actually, and all that.
Yeah, but it turns out it's more like the other way around. Like people are reaching to find the golden ratio. So we find these numbers. Like I'm fascinated, for example, by pi. Like, is there anything about pi in the Quran? And if there was, would that prove Islam? When people have been using like trigonometry and astrology for like thousands of years before Islam.
Yeah.
We have to remember what's the criteria. Is there an objective criteria that we're assessing all things against, or is it just something that we've looked that Islam has this quality and we're gonna champion it as a sign? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, and I think, when you look at things more objectively, and you also notice, or I mean, part of grad school was, critical thinking, and it's funny how you apply it to everything else except your beliefs, because you've already. I mean, there's so much writing on it. I mean, you don't apply it to that because you already know that Islam is true. So why would you apply to that, right? And I mean, yeah, I mean, if looked at other books that were interesting on like mistakes were made, but not by me. And it was interesting how, like, for the doomsday cults, the people who had donated the most amount of their life savings ended up being the ones who were still fervently with that cult even after that date had elapsed and the earth was still there. And it just had to do with, how people's minds are.
Isn't that like the sunk cost fallacy kind of?
Yeah, it's part of that. Exactly. Yeah. We protect, we often, part of our psyche is to protect ourselves from feeling dumb, and think of ourselves as having less worth. And we tend to make a different narrative that protects ourselves. We don't have to deal with that reality that does make us look like we're in a dumb light. Like, everyone that I meet, every job that I go to, they're just incompetent. Like, maybe it's you, right? Like, that's not a common way that people live their lives, right? And maybe it's just, genetic. And one other thing that I've seen is even in religiosity, it seems to have like some genetic component to religiosity, to your personality type. So yeah, I mean, I would say that even I've been questioning things more and more, and then YouTube starts making suggestions, and I think I've seen all of your videos. It was like walking around in New York City with earbuds in, and just going through them all, and quite a few others. But I think seeing things from like the ex-Muslim perspective, people like you that aren't aggressive or militant, and there's an anti-theist sort of position as well. I think it was easier to kind of think critically and be open-minded, hearing things from that perspective compared to maybe some of the anti-theists that are sort of shows that I do enjoy now.
I don't want to break your heart, but like I've said this before, it's not like a secret or anything, but I think I'm always a work in progress, of course, and my positions are a work in progress, but I think to some extent I am anti-theist, but I get what you mean. I get the flavor of it that you're talking about. Like, I don't bring on a theist right here and call them stupid and like, do all that kind of stuff. But I'm anti-theist in the sense that I think the concept of religion at this stage of civilization is not a good one. It's more ripe for abuse than benefit.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just wanted to put that out there, so I'm not like,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Pretending to not be an anti-theist, but I'm also like not tied to that label. Anyway, I just had to say.
Yeah. And I think a lot. Yeah, and I think I've seen what a lot of you do, and some of the other like videos I've enjoyed is sort of the street epistemology, where it's more about like asking questions. I don't know if that's like the Socratic method, where it just kind of gets you thinking and non-aggressively or in a non-confrontational way to kind of challenge your ideas and look at them sort of at a meta level. Try to get more objective than just, you're an idiot because you believe in, fairy tale stuff and all that.
I would love that done to me. Like, I love it when people ask me questions, they turn it around on me. But in those conversations, usually by the time that someone asks me questions, it's usually someone who's really trying to like fight me rather than use the same method towards me. So I still do engage, but it's very rare that I get someone who basically flips puts us on the opposite sides of the table. And I think I would enjoy that, because sometimes I like to talk about myself, or to think, or to have my thoughts inspected that way with the Socratic method. But I'm glad that you enjoyed them or found some value in them.
Yeah, so thanks so much for doing that, and I want to support you. I just need to find a way to sort of anonymize my payments and all that. But I think it's great that you're doing this work. I think it's good. I think it's helpful, especially for people that are looking for truth. And like one of the earlier callers was saying that people are stupid and the religious people are stupid. I mean, I think we all believe in certain things that are irrational, and it's kind of a cult kind of thing. I don't really blame the person themselves. There are a lot of things that we just kind of go with the flow on and assume, and I think that's fine. But even religious people, if they want to be religious, and there are benefits, I think, to be religious in your state of mind, I guess, in some contexts. And if someone wants to be religious, I think that's fine. But if you're more interested in finding the truth, then I think kind of what you're doing is beneficial, or at least also I think even from a cultural thing, at least for religious. I live in the West, so we generally don't have this similar issues that people have that live in Muslim majority countries. So we don't have to worry about like honor killings and as much, or women's rights generally. I mean, there's still issues, but so yeah, like people in my family, I mean, it's kind of weird because I'm married and kind of have gone through this sort of process, deconstruction, I guess they call it, after being married to a Muslim person who's, relatively, what do you say, liberal Muslim maybe, but still mostly praise, and like, their, slogans or, some of their passwords have to do with like how much they love Islam and all that. And, so it's like, that's, it's kind of a difficult thing. And I know a lot of people deal with that, but, her family is, I think, I would say tolerant Muslim, which is awesome. Anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, share some thoughts on just, I guess the main thing was just in growing up and being so convinced that Islam is true, and just looking at it from the perspective that I'm in now, where it's like, it probably isn't, you can't prove, what is it? You can't prove like a unknown or a false, whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's not what was presented. And I think what they call, I guess, say, non-resistive unbelief, not against the faith per se. I mean, besides all the slavery stuff and all that, and anti-LGBT, definitely, that's not cool. But I mean, there's a lot of reformist Muslims. But I mean, in terms of just, is there a God, or is the God of Muhammad? Like I non-resistively don't really believe that. But it's just weird from this perspective, looking at how fervent I was before, and coming up with all the evidences, the people and the Big Bang and this and that. I think one last thing I was going to say was that there's one big thing that kind of boosted my faith, because I've always been sort of against, like, an iconoclast and kind of against the grain and questioning things. When I was a young man, I read this book from Saudi Arabia. It was Muslim Youth Association, I think it was, and it was like the evidences or the sources of Quran, and it was like either Muhammad was telling the truth, or he made it up on his own, or he learned it from someone else, or even he made it up on his own, but he didn't realize that he was getting like he had a mental problem, right? And it kind of went through all these things, and then at the end of the book, it was like, and look at all these other proofs, like the word day is in 365 times in the Quran, and the word night is in this many times, and month is 12 times, and the word for ocean is the same, the ratio to land is in the Quran, the same ratio. And then I kind of found some websites where they actually counted it out, and that's not in there at all. So I was
Wait,
like,
was it one of these books by any chance?
let's see.
Do you recognize any of these?
Let me open my screen here.
These are all from Saudi Arabia. Youth.
Yeah, I think it was one of those. Yeah, it's called the Source of Quran. Yeah, yeah, and
Been there,
man,
done
that
that.
so it's like so invigorating to see that. I mean, like you knew, like you had to be, and they made such a great argument for, the petite mal seizures, and there's no way Muhammad could, and like he like to call yourself, who's the worst, who will be punished more than someone who lies about God. It's like, yeah, they made
Yeah.
such a good case,
They
but
put graphs in there and everything, like they
oh
really
man, yeah,
dazzled you with all this stuff. But
yeah. So
yeah.
what I don't know, man. I mean, it's such a change in perception, and my friend was like, you have a new life, you have a new perspective and all that. So it's a little bit different, like living, not being too worried about hell and heaven, and not taking things. It's a different perspective. But like one of the previous callers too, like it does sometimes get a little irritating when you're with some of the older people that are like, mashallah, alhamdulillah, for every single thing, and that's how Allah made the animals, and it's you just have to be patient with people, and we're in a pluralistic society. I think sometimes some of the religious, like what we're going through as like ex-Muslims and all that, is I think also part of just this current day and age where things are not homogenous. Like in the old days, everyone would just be, you're in the same town, you don't really leave the town, you all worship the same thing. But now with all this mixing, people grow up seeing different cultures. I mean, 100%, if I was living in, the country my dad was born, the Muslim country, like I would have, been Muslim forever, right? You wouldn't really have much reason to question that if you never saw a non-Muslim. So I think it's going to happen more.
I wouldn't be so
more
sure, but yeah, you're probably more
Maybe.
likely with exposure,
More likely.
right? But yeah.
And yeah, I mean the same thing. Americans or non-Muslims living in proximity to Muslim people tend to sometimes become Muslim because there's something that they see that's fascinating or interested in it, and I think it's part of the modern world where more and more people are mixing. And I think it just becomes complicated when it gets into the there's a big difference between sort of the Buddhist kind of religions where they're just, going to the temple and doing their rituals, and the Muslim Islamic religion where, I mean, to be honest, like some of the people that I came across, being a Muslim, like even in America, were like, yeah, like we need to bring back the Muslim government, and we need to rule by the rule of Allah, and like, it's a it's not just keep separation of church and state, like, and that's still there, and they would always say like that's why the West is against Islam. That's why they because they know like Islam is this has not been extinguished, and it's going to rise again, and it's a little scary, but at the time it's like, wow, I'm part of something bigger.
You said something earlier that gave me a realization. You said that the brain, I'm not quoting exactly, but the brain protects itself from feeling stupid, right? Or feeling like,
right.
Yeah.
So from the book, mistakes were made, but not by me.
Yeah, I definitely had that in my personality at some point where when I was younger, like I'm talking like 19, 20, maybe, if I were to get in an argument, I would probably double down, or make up an excuse if I'm proven wrong. I'd be like, yeah, but so and so, or
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't just say, you know what, I was wrong, and I will think about this. That was just not in my vocabulary, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out which one came first, the chicken or the egg. Did I first drop that attitude and become more open to being wrong, or was it after I finally realized that that Islam is not true that I started having that attitude? But I think I have that attitude a lot more now. Like when people argue with me, I can totally be wrong about anything, and I don't feel ashamed of that because I was wrong for the longest time, or right, I don't know, whichever way you see it. I had critical thoughts since my childhood about
Yeah.
Islam, but it wasn't even an option in my mind that Islam is false. So
Right.
either like I was right all along or wrong all along, but just after breaking down and accepting that, you know, this is the reality, now my brain is not as scared of being or looking stupid. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like I empathize with that too, and I think that's sometimes like the sort of energy that people in the comments section, or even I saw your previous stream, that last caller that kind of went off the deep end. I think a lot of people, that's kind of where they're coming from. Like, it's so obvious to them that their beliefs are true. I mean, there's not even a possibility of you being wrong, and that's where they're coming from. So they're just exasperated that, you know, someone could be so idiotic to not acknowledge the obvious, and it's just a mental block. And then sometimes, you know, even when I enjoy debating with some of my friends sometimes, and then sometimes you just ask before, instead of just wasting time, like, is there anything that would change your mind, or like what information, if you saw, would change your mind on this? I'm sure you've heard this before. And if there's nothing, then there's really no point in having any. There's no meaningful discussion at that point, right? You just lakum dinukum waliya din.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I in a way I'm kind of glad it's kind of cultish, the Islamic thing, and then sometimes a few other things I see sometimes are like people that are super religious, like someone in my family is like, you know, up there, and they'll sometimes have these sort of religious things that kind of put you off. But we're talking about something random about like death or something. It was like the process of death, and he was like, mashallah, it's so complicated, like no one can, scientists can't even understand it. And I was showing him some articles, and he was just said, Rabbi zidni ilma, and just kind of like cut it off. And it's such a self-righteous way to like sort of like stop any further engagement that you can't maybe make a good argument. It's just like
It's like the Islamic version of "damn, that's crazy."
Yeah, bless your heart. What do they say? Like, every bless your heart has a little fuck you inside of it, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, but no, keep doing what you're doing, and I definitely want to support you and other folks that are doing that. I think it's good work. I know it takes time to build an audience, and it may not even be the sort of niche that can build. I mean, it's definitely not like Mr. Beast kind of thing, right? But I think it's these days on the internet and YouTube, there's always a niche, and I'm sure you'll get it to grow. At some, you know, just have positive growth, and yeah, inshallah, soon it'll before you realize it, it'll be substantial. And remember the thing about you switching to doing this full time, and yeah, it just takes, you know, some people sharing this thing. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it seems like, yeah, enough people share things, at some point it'll get published somewhere and on some news thing somewhere, and it goes like an Oprah book club book or something. But
say inshallah,
yeah.
it won't happen.
Inshallah. All right, brother. Good talking to you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you once again to the caller. It was a very enjoyable call, as they pretty much all are. Yeah, I've accepted that I don't view this channel the way that a YouTuber making videos about, I don't know, say aviation. That's a topic that I'm interested in. A YouTuber would make a video about aviation, and like he wants to grow his channel or her channel, and hopefully make, you know, enough money to be able to continue to do what they're passionate about. I don't view this as the same kind of channel, because I understand that I'm not trying to find a mass appeal, and maybe there are ways that I can make my videos more appealing to the masses, and I do try. If I'm going to make a video, not a live stream, I try to give as much context as I can, so that someone who doesn't know what's going on can kind of follow along. But I could cater to the masses, but I'm not doing that, right? I'm trying to find a specific voice a specific way, and that changes with time, of course. And I've accepted that it's going to be a slow growth. It's going to take a while, and it may never get to a large enough size to be sustainable in the long term. But damn it, I'm going to try. I've got at least till the end of this year, hopefully, where I can do this live streaming and making videos and all that kind of stuff as a full-time thing. And it's already helped me a lot. I'm already a lot more productive than I used to be, and I have the room to be alive. Like before that, it was work and then this, and then there's nothing. Like I have no time to do anything. Now I can sort of grow. And that's thanks to all of you, and thanks to everyone who's supported me monetarily or just by being here. Some of you have been here since the beginning, and some of you have just joined, and I appreciate every single one of you. Anyway, let's get back to, we have one last caller and a bunch of comments that I want to read first. By the way, I forgot, tomorrow is no hijab day. And I had a bunch of videos that I was working on about the hijab, and some are not done yet. But hey, happy No Hijab Day tomorrow for those who do celebrate, and for those who want to someday take it off. I hope that you can celebrate the next one. Kat says happy No Hijab Day. Also, will there ever be merch? I don't know if there will ever be merch. I feel like for many reasons, probably not, because I don't want this to be about me. So I feel like if I put merch in it that has anything to do with me, it's a bit too self-indulgent. Not that people who have merch for their kind of other types of channels or this kind of channels, there's anything wrong with that. I just not sure how I feel about it. But also it kind of identifies you, and I don't want people who support me to be easily identifiable in a crowd. Not a great idea, but if only. Yeah, so I'll read a few comments from this commenter before I get to the last caller. So again, there's stuff going on in the live chat that I'm not quite following all the time, but Jawad was saying, I don't know, man, you seem like a good person and well-mannered. I just don't get how you haven't realized Islam is the truth and what a big mistake you've made. Maybe you're honest, meaning you understood Islam completely wrong unintentionally, but if you really deep down think, you'll know that you're wrong and you need to understand it properly. I think he's very close to realizing it. He's very close to realizing it's not that every single person, or it's like there is a chance, a very good chance, that someone understood Islam properly and still doesn't see any proof in it. If there is anything undeniably provable about Islam, I guarantee you, it would be at the forefront of science. Like scientists like truth. If there was anything testable or provable about Islam, it would be in journals. It would actually be research. Like there isn't a conspiracy to hide the truth. So you're coming close to realizing that good people, and I'm not calling myself a good person, but at least seemingly, based on how I behave on these live streams and all that kind of stuff, people who seem reasonable and decent can honestly disbelieve. And someday, hopefully, you're going to see that. And that's when you're going to realize, oh, there's a lot of people destined for hell who don't deserve to go to hell. Otherwise, it's delusional, honestly. And I'm sorry to phrase it that way, but it's delusional to think that anyone who disagrees is lying to themselves or to you. Like, what's crazier, that someone disagrees honestly, or that everyone's a liar but you, or delusional but you, And yes, there is a very good reason why I hide my face. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but people don't like people who talk about religion this way. And I don't want to take a risk. And lastly, what do you mean your work is far from done? What is your ideal end goal? And I think that's a good question that I wanted to answer. This is because I had said, Jawad was saying, well, why didn't you just make a couple of videos and then move on from the topic? And I mentioned how, well, Islam still continues to live. Islam is still here. It's not like 2 videos are going to cut it. It's not enough for me. I feel like my work is far from done. I have a lot on my mind about the topic. People have a lot on their mind that they keep coming in and they keep talking, and every time there's a new thing, every time there's a new person sharing a new story, my work is far from done. I don't have a hard limit or a goal, to be honest. Like, I don't have a specific milestone, and maybe I should, that I want to reach, and then I can close up shop and think my work here is done. Because I'm not even sure how long I can do this for sustainably, be it because of money reasons or also like mental health reasons, or it's hard to talk about this topic often or to think about it often. It's frustrating to see how I have to word things. I have to think about how to word things in a way that is not too complicated and still appealing and simple enough to understand, and yet also not too simple that it seems silly. There's a lot of nuance that I try to put into this, when at the end of the day, I feel like I want to bang my head against the wall and just say, guys, it's so obvious. Like, what are we even talking about? So it's difficult. I don't know when my work is going to be done, but I know it's not done yet. As long as I still have the energy and capacity and money to do this, then I'll be here. I think I would like to see a future where people can leave Islam openly and continue to live their life without much consequence, to the point that they don't feel like they need to talk about it that much, because there's a lot of other people who also left Islam, or if they do want to talk about it, that they can easily talk about it and in whatever space that they want to. When that's a reality, when we recognize that the actual harmful effects of religion, then I feel like part of my job is done. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get to the last caller for today. I hope you are ready, because I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, how are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for asking.
All right, so first of all, I guess I wanted to let you know how I came across your channel. It was pretty weird. So you mentioned the channel, the ramen trees before, right?
Theremin trees, yeah.
Yeah,
Or is that the ramen trees? You know what? I never thought of
never
that.
know. I never know. It has such a weird name.
The
So
ramen trees. Okay, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
so the weird YouTube algorithm just gave me some videos of him, and then I stumbled upon the other guy. I forgot his name. He did like that 8 kinds of atheist thing, and then he did the ex-Muslim guy, and that was basically you. And then I was like, wait, something like that even exists, or like there's even a group or a group of persons that do that like publicly, and I was very surprised. So that's how I basically came across your channel, like maybe like a week ago, and I did basically what I did with most of the new channels I come across. I basically binged everything in like 1 week. So yeah, that's about the story how I came across here, I guess. But
Well,
just
I feel bad for you that you had to listen to me for an entire week, but I'm glad that you're here.
well, I can say that like you have at least a calming voice. Like your voice isn't like, at least for me, not like negative, and the audio quality is good enough, so I'm not bothered with it at all. Like it is very enjoyable, like just about the audio, right? And
I'm glad.
yeah, so I'm also a little bit excited. So excuse me if I'm like
That's all right.
doing weird pauses or something like that. But I basically wanted to share like the 3 stages of my personal faith, I would say, and to make it more sense, like a little bit of background info about me. I was born in the late 90s in Germany, and born and raised as well. And my parents are from Turkey, born and raised there. So that's basically my background. So even though I like saw everything from the beginning here in the West, I always had like that. Today I would call it the indoctrination of like the past of my parents, right? So you know, like this, there are like millions of Turkish people in Germany, and they are like a whole other topic. I could talk like for ages about that culture and how it like developed in Germany and all that. It is like something for itself, but I want to focus more about the faith part, right? So my parents are even among the Turkish community in Europe fairly conservative. Like I would say, like not in the last stage where they are just running around with like with the Muslim hat and all that, like in public. Like my mother is obviously wearing hijab and all that, but like fairly conservative in terms of like compared to the other persons and all that. And so basically from my early ages as a child, I was just having this the standard education, right? I was sent to Quran schools and all that, sometimes just in the holidays. And like when I was like at 12 or 13 or something, I basically was sent to a school like every weekend and every holidays, because like my parents felt the urge that they have the mission, the obligation to teach their children, right?
Mhm.
That sort of like in Islam they tell you like you're obligated to teach your children. If you can't, then you have to let them be taught by others, right? So that was basically how I learned like just some trivial stuff, like what were the names of like the prophet's wives, and like what are the five pillars of Islam and all that, pillars. And but we never really like took it too serious. We waited for the breaks and we had fun with the other guys there, and we made some good friendships and all that. And I specifically remember how sometimes, like, I think where we went there for years was like some sort of a Sufi thing. And sometimes we were just giggling in the background, or like when there was the prayer, we danced or stuff like that. Back then, as like children or like early teens, we never took it too seriously, right?
Mhm.
And that's how it like went on. And then when me and my brother were older, our parents couldn't like keep forcing us to go there, right? We were like, we are at a certain age. We learned enough, like we don't have to go there anymore, right? That was like the idea. So it basically then like stopped. But I always, like, even though I wasn't really practicing, I always did like those restricting things, like right, like I fasted, I went to Jummah always when I could. And in school, I was always like to the other Muslim dudes or Turkish dudes, like, "Oh man, why are you eating from the cafeteria? The meat there isn't halal." And all. So basically, when I look now at my earlier version of me, I was just a pain in the ass for like the people around me, right? For no good reason. And when I now think about it, I kind of want to like turn back and like just, I don't know, like give myself like a tap, you know, like as to not like like with the wife beating, like not extremely hard, but that I get respect and all that.
Would that have helped you?
I don't know. It might have disturbed me to see my future self. That's the whole topic, but
Yeah.
like that was just like that. But I was always a bit weird back then. Like I was like the dude who in the class photos stood in the background and just smiled creepily, and like I did some shenanigans back then and all that. But I was always like awkward and weird when it came to like things that were actually restricted, right? So like back then, I always had like this problem with the other gender, because I had that thing from the dean, right? So you're not supposed to get girlfriends and all that, and I took that seriously, but like in I don't know, like it was weird. I specifically remember a time, like you might already have heard of the Alawis in Turkey, right? Those more progressive, or like a little bit similar to the Shias, but much more soft, I could say. I would say in Turkey they are more like a second, like a different culture as well. Like they have their own style of marrying and dancing and all that. But what I basically thought back then as a kid was like, they are bad. They are just like soft Muslims. They are eating pork. They are drinking. Like they are having girlfriends. They are not living it right and all that. So I kind of had like a weird hatred in my heart for them, even though I never knew one of them or all that. And then when I was in school, that was maybe one of my first experiences of cognitive dissonance. Like I had this one guy in my class. We like we like we did we like went along, right? And at some point he was like, and at some point I was like mumbling about, oh man, I had Alavis and all that, and they are so bad. And then he was looking at me and he was like, I'm one of them. And I was like, oh. And that was like a weird realization to like be. And then I thought, why did I like have so many prejudices that were good about them, and why did I hate them even though I didn't really know them, and even though my parents didn't taught me that, the way that they were like, they don't take it very seriously, like the insinuation actually led to something else in me, right? And when I was like 16, my cousin was like, oh come on man, there's like a sohbet. I don't know if that word also comes from Arabic as well, right?
A what?
The meetings where the Muslims meet and there is like a preacher or something.
What was it called?
A sohbet in Turkish.
Oh, sohbet. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just playing PlayStation. I was like, dude, leave me alone. I did my duty. I was there in my early ages. Like, I don't want. I don't want to like butcher my weekend. I just want to play because, school's gonna start again next Monday. And he kind of like forced me to it. And actually, the weird part is, my mom actually said to him that he should force me to, like he should like get me to go there, because she was like, my kids aren't going anywhere, like they need to go there and all that. And then I went there. Sorry for that. Then I went there, and then I would say like my second stage started, and oh boy, this is where the pain in the ass actually really started. Like they were charismatic dudes, and they spoke German, so they did the preachers in German. And for me that was a whole new situation, because till that moment I only knew it in Turkish, and I only knew it from like boring imams in Turkish mosques who did like this generic Jumash speech and all that, like nothing specific, nothing that really like get me going or something like that. And then that dude was like extremely charismatic, and there were like a lot of people, like 20, 30 young people. I was actually the youngest there back then. And they were like mesmerized by his speech. And before I realized, I was too. So he had like this calm voice and this weird like this weird look in his eyes, and I don't know what it was, but I was basically like, when I went home, I was like, okay, cool, I'm done with it. Let's keep playing, right? And well, that went on, and I actually kind of like from my point of view now, I would say I like fall into the hands or into the fangs of that vicious system, right? So I actually, like, I was like, I had the feeling of myself that I was enlightened back then. I was also going really into that conspiracy theory shit and all that. So I was like, oh my God, I can see the world now. I can see the truth now. Everything makes sense now and all that. And at the same time, I was like, oh yeah, Islam is the truth as well. I was always taught back then, we don't believe like the other religions, because belief is if you're not certain, we are convinced, right? And then they were like, the reason why we are convinced is because the Quran has like the miracle which is timeless, because like Jesus may walk on top of water, right? But we can't see it now, so there is no proof for the present. And Islam has to be like the religion for every time, for the till the end of time. So we needed a proof that is timeless, right? So it was like, okay, well, what is it? And then they were like, well, it is like the way that the Quran does the rhyming, and it proves that it can't be man-made. And like till today, there are like supercomputers working on finding any errors in the Quran, and it is not possible with all that. And I was like, oh my God, like this is just what I needed. I just needed that one truth. Like this is why I wasn't really serious about it. And back then I was like, okay, well, this is my mission now, because then I was convinced, okay, this is basically it. And then my conservative parents, which like kind of like always like tilted me into the right direction, right? Then they weren't extreme enough for me. Like in the next moment, I was like, well, why are you listening to music, right? And I was like, why aren't you like standing up to Fajr? Like you're just like doing it before Dhuhr and all that. And I was like, like that phase, like the 2 or 3 years. Oh my God, that is maybe the most embarrassed time of my life. Like even when I went back to Turkey once a year to see like the relatives and all that, I was such a pain in the ass, you know. To all the female relatives, I was like, oh no, I can't give you my hand now, I can't hug you now, like even though we are somewhat like siblings and all that. And everyone in my family started to call me like Hoja, like the Turkish word for imam, right? So I was like this big pain in the ass to just keep your distance from, because if you get too close, you will start to preach why you are not fasting, or why you are not doing this and that and all that. And yeah, that's basically it. And the weird thing is, I was like, back then I was so serious, and I didn't allow like any kind of humor, that even in the groups of the preaching and all that, they actually like had like some sort of proud laughing with me, right? They didn't laugh about me, but they were like amazed how serious I can be and all that. And even like the cult leader, I would call him that, right? Even he was like amazed about it that much, that he actually like made me to his right hand, right? So I became like I got some responsibilities in that group. So I was doing like, before the preach, I stood there and did like the adab thing for like 5 to 10 minutes, like we should behave like this and that. And I had my small adab book and all that. And the weird thing is, it went on for like 1 or 2 years. Like it was super weird back then, because we were at this, like our small group was at this idea that the whole world is after us because we are teaching the truth, and like we have to do this all hidden, because like we are in the Western country, they would just get rid of us otherwise. And we were always like hush hush and hiding, and we couldn't do that in like the mosques themselves. So we basically did it in like garden houses of some of the people. Like I remember those winter mornings where we like stood up at 6 a.m. or something and went to the car in the cold and like drove there and just to do like some weird ass speech in a small hut in the middle of nowhere, just to like not just so not nobody can like see us there or something. Like if we were even told we should not like join the house in one group. We should always join like in like small groups of 2 or 3, just to not take any more attention than necessary, right? So
Like whose attention? Like the Germans? Or you mean in Turkey?
yeah, like the
Okay.
Germans or anybody else who would be like suspicious and who would like report it. It even went so far. One of that guys, we were like visiting in his house very much back then. Like some of the speeches were made at his house. He lost his house because like at some point the neighbors were concerned and they like, you know, they reported him to the authorities and they looked into it, and basically he was kicked out of his house. So that's how far that insanity went, and everybody was like, well, Allah is testing you, you know, you might lose this house but you will get much more in paradise and all that. And like talking about it now, it just seems like ridiculous, right? But back then it was like, so, oh my god, he did such a big like he took such a big loss for the greater cause and all that. So it kept going, but at some point, I don't know what it was, but like sleeping less, like all the pressure, especially like at that point with like 17 or 18, I joined another school, and in that school we had like the majority of the people there were girls, women, right? And I was in the classroom and I was just like staring at the ground and I was like avoiding any eye contact. Like it was super weird. Like it just was extremely weird. Like even my classmates, even they even tried to be like as kind as they could, but like at some point, how do you treat a person who is treating you like as if you're not even existing, right? So I guess at some point everything got like a little bit too much, and I kind of like drove into a depressive phase or something like that, and I actually quit the school. I quit the preach groups, and like basically everything. Like I even quit talking to my parents or my friends or anything, right? So I just like went back into my shell, and I was like out of answers, like at my wits' end, basically. And after that, like I had some visits of my fellow cult members who tried to like convince me to come back, right? And I never really like recovered from that, I guess. Like after like 1 or 2 years, I came back to the group, and everybody was just happy that I'm back again. And I kind of felt like a celebrity, even though I just felt bad. And after that, they were like, well, you were gone so long. Well, you can't actually be in the main group anymore, but we have side groups now as well. So just go there. So I went there and I was like, well, this is stuff I already learned. Like, what am I supposed to do here and all that? But basically back then, everything began a little bit to shatter. But like sometimes I stopped praying, and then sometimes I just started again. And I was like in a weird limbo where I was between like, it is the objective truth. I can't do anything about it. I just have to like, swallow it and like move on, right? And at some point, at another point, I was like, this can't be. Something feels off. I always had that feeling, because like even though when other people cried or all that or got emotional in speeches, and I always had that stone face, like not because I was trying to be serious, but because I was like, yeah, okay, cool, but I never really felt something. And whenever I like explained that concern, I always got the answer, well, these are the games of the shaitan, like you can't let that happen, you don't listen to that and all that. And I was like, well, that's kind of convenient, but I don't even know how it feels, if it feels right. That was always like so I just did it because I was like, well, gravity exists and like other rules of physics exist and this exists and I can't do anything about it. That was basically my stance. So I was like, I thought I was acting rational. With my belief system back then, I was acting rational, right? But I don't know. It kept going, and it just from time to time it like fell apart. At some point, I was just like, I was just left with so much embarrassment. Like at some point, like the whole thing with like not hugging your female relatives because like they are the cousin of your father. Like you treated them like an aunt, but in Islam you could actually marry them, and that therefore you must not see them and all that. Like it was just, it was always weird, like explaining it. Like we had that phrase back then where we were super proud of it. Basically, whenever whenever a female asks you, hey, why aren't you allowed to give me your hand? Why aren't you allowed to shake my hand? We're always like, well, you know the Queen of England, right? And they were like, yeah. And then it was like, well, not any man could just come along and shake her hand, right? And they were like, yeah, I guess. And then we were like, ha. Well, in Islam, every woman is a queen, therefore, not any man can just come along and give their hand. And we felt like super proud of that like gotcha thing. And I actually used that thing in my working space and with some other persons. And I always felt like cool, like spitting that lines. And now that I think about it, all is left, as I said, is embarrassment. It's just so stupid. And well, it went on, and the weird thing is, back then a lot of things happened in my like personal development as well. Like back then I fell in love for the first time and all that made me question a lot of things again, because it was it was not a Muslim. And whenever things got rocky, I was always like, we might divide our ways, but before I go, I have to tell you, like, Islam is the truth, and you must accept it before you die, because I validate you, and I don't want you to go to hell and all that. And it's just so weird. Like, imagine you're dividing your way with someone, and that person just gives you like that present, like giveaway present, it was like as if someone else made me talk or type those things, right? It was never like my personality. And I don't know which video it was, because I've binged your channel, right? But it's the closer, like the more you are practicing, or the more you act like believing, the less personality you will have, and the more personality of yours will just be eaten up by Islam, or like just replaced with Islam, right? So that was basically what happened back then. Then years passed. It always like my belief faded away. And of course, in Islam, there's like this super convenient answer for it. Well, if you get separated from it, you'll lose faith more and more, and until your heart is like hardened enough so you can't even hear it anymore. And I think that's when I realized, like, there are so many explanations to so many difficult questions that are just like answering themselves. Like, why is someone not believing? Well, it is because he's not believing, basically. That is like a stupid explanation. Like, why isn't his imam that big? Because, well, he stirred away, and now he's just he can't even hear it, and like his heart went stone and all that. And I always had like a problem with that explanation, like explaining stuff with like the stuff itself. What's the term? Is it like a circular argumentation or something like that, right? And I kind of like at some point I was like questioning more and more, and like for the last 2-3 years I'm like not practicing at all. I didn't went to any preachers. I don't go to Juma anymore, and when there's like Ramadan, it is always like, well, if I'm staying at my with relatives or at my parents, like I kind of fast, but I guess I don't. Like it was always weird. Like I didn't take it seriously anymore. But I was always like, oh yeah, here's an idea. I wanted to like I wanted your opinion about as well. Like for the last few years, as I told, where I wasn't really practicing anymore, I always had this idea: what if this is just like the reality, right? Because I never really like, for example, a Christian who became a non-believer and said like, well, there are so many diseases, small children get cancer and all that, there can't be a God. And then I was like, well, the existence of God doesn't necessarily say that it has to be a fair God, right? It can be like this sick, sadistic freak, and that can still be the truth. Like, you, for example, someone can hate gravity, and someone would kind of could believe that they could fly, but if you jump off the building, you will just smash into the ground. You can't change the fact. And I was always like, as much as I dislike it, or as much as I don't like the results now, what if it is just the truth? What if it's just a sick show? Like someone just created us because they just wanted to make us like obey and like praise them. What if that's like the reality, right? And that always kept me back, because I mean, I obviously can't I obviously can't talk Arabic. Like I can read the Quran and all that, but like the obvious, not debatable wonder of Islam, which is like the lyrical miracle in the Quran, which I thought that would be like the case. I can't disprove it as well, because then it's told, well, you, to understand it, you have to speak Arabic, and you have to learn it, and like you have to went to school for 20 years in Arabic literacy and all that. And I was like, well, for it to be a timeless miracle for every human being, it kind of has a lot of restrictions to actually be able to understand it. But that doesn't change the fact. What if it's still the truth? Like, what if he thought, or he thinks, or he laughs and says like, well, what you gonna do? Like, deal with it. It doesn't have to be fair. That was always like my idea. Maybe it isn't just, maybe it is just not fair. Maybe a lot of people who are not deserving it will just go to hell, and maybe that's just how it is. And the way that I can change gravity, and the way that I just can't fly, maybe I can change that as well. So what do you think about that idea, about like that insidious way the mind kind of wants to pull back to like not to a like merciful God, but to a like sick God who is just gets off by suffering or something?
It's not that your mind wants to pull back per se. It's just the fear that you've had deep seated inside you. You've been a Muslim for way, way longer than you've been a non-practicing Muslim. You're not going to immediately forget all the years and years of repetition and fear and thought and prayer. It doesn't just go away. So it's understandable that your mind will try to quickly return back to the way back when the world made sense. It may be horrific, but it made sense. But that would have been a much bigger issue if Islam was consistent, if Islam was rational in every way. And then there's the added layer of it's horrible, but it's true. But given the way that Allah is presented in Islam, not only does he have a lot of bad qualities, he'd have to be like lying, or not just lying, he'd have to be such a mumbling kind of makes mistakes all the time in inconsistency kind of God. So he'd have to be incompetent. So the God that you're describing, the evil God that just wants it the way that he wants, would be a lot more competent than that, I think. Unless he's also incompetent, maybe. But then we're just creating a more and more elaborate hypothetical scenario. And it's much simpler to realize that none of this exists, and it's all hypotheticals on top of hypotheticals. Hypothetically, if you studied Arabic for 20 years as a native speaker, hypothetically, then you would see that there's a miracle in the Quran. But that's not even true. Even people who understand Arabic, because like you said, how is it a miracle if you need to put in all this effort to understand it? But even then, what is miraculous about the way that a book is written? There is no criteria for that. So when you get past the fear of all of this, you will realize that this is just another hypothetical on top. I don't know if that really answers your question, but I get where you're coming from. It's not ridiculous to think that way, especially given how long you've been thinking Islam.
Yeah.
But it's and in that scenario, you know what? Say that is the case. What can you do, really? Like,
That was my second question. Like, if that would be the truth, like, let's say it is what it is. We have this sick freak who will just make us all suffer for questioning him or even trying to criticize him. He is this narcissistic guy. Let's say that's the case. Like, would we just like, I don't know if you watched like for example, in one TV show, Rick and Morty, I don't know if you know it.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it is very cringy if you consider like.
Oh, he cut out because he disparaged Rick and Morty. Hey, are you still there?
Kept producing like
Oh, you're back.
electricity and keep.
Sorry,
kept
you
hating
cut
him,
out.
right?
You cut out. Can you repeat? You're saying it may be a bit cringy, and then you cut out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know that whole topic about the Rick and Morty is a bit cringy and all that with the fan base and all the weird acting and all that. But there's just this one episode where his car battery isn't working anymore. I don't know if you know it.
Hmm.
And well, basically, to make it TLDR, his car battery is basically a world full of aliens who are thinking that he is God, and they are just producing electricity for him. And when his battery wasn't working, he realized they are not working anymore. He went in, threatened them, and then he went back out. And so the aliens, so the alien scientists knew, well, if you don't keep producing electricity now, we will just get replaced or we will just die. So he accepted the root fact that his whole his whole existence is just to produce electricity. And so he kept hating his God, therefore, but he kept producing it as well. So that was like the idea. But I thought, like, what if this is true and this is it is just a sick thing? Then yeah, should we just like still rebel?
I mean, if you obeyed Allah, right, and like say you've reached the conclusion that Allah is real and evil and inconsistent and all these things, but is real, do you think that He's gonna let you into heaven even though you don't like Him? You might even fear Him and maybe even despise Him or confused by Him, but you don't love Him. Do you think that gives you a pass to go to heaven?
That's what I never knew, because if it is the case that it is actually about how I think about it, because I can change how I think about it, right? Like I can maybe influence my actings, like I can maybe force myself to do prayers and all that, but I wouldn't be able to change the idea how I think about the system, right? So I don't know about that, but basically, like
well, the point I was getting at is, say all of that is true, I have no way out of my fate, which is, that I don't see that I'm not illusioned by this image that Allah presents as fair and merciful and all that. Deep inside, I'll always think, no, Allah is an evil God. Sure, I'll do the prayers. Sure, I'll repeat all the words. I'll do everything till I die, if that's the case. But then I'll be resurrected, and He knows that I don't like Him. not just about me, like it's not me being rebellious or me thinking I'm better than you. It's me realizing the truth. I don't love him. I can't love him. I'm terrified of him. Then I'm going to go to hell anyway. So there is nothing that I can do differently to change my conclusion about the reality of that evil God. So I should just live my life in a way that I see fit, because I'm screwed either way, you know?
The idea that if you don't do it wholeheartedly and you go to hell is actually much more comforting to me, because then I know, well, I actually can't do anything about it. Because like if it would be like a weird system where it is like ignore the hearts, like just look at what people did, then it would be like this, god damn, it's now I have to force myself to do it and all that, right? But yeah, I'm at the point right now where I'm like, for the last few years I didn't act like as I was practicing anyway, and I was like, whenever I got the chance and I heard weird stuff, and I was always questioning it. For example, like, you kind of maybe got an idea about my age range, right? But I have a younger brother who is already why am I missing the word? What comes? Who's already married? Why did I forget that?
That's
And-
okay. It's well, you're thinking in multiple languages right now, so that makes
Yes,
sense.
exactly. Like I thought about the German phrase, the Turkish phrase, and then I was like, how come I don't remember the English phrase? And
What's the German and Turkish phrases, by the way?
married would
Yeah.
mean in German verheiratet, and in Turkish it would mean evli. Evli
Evli.
means more like someone who's already got a house. Ev means house. Evli means someone who has a house. Like there is more like this idea that the moment you are married, you kind of build your own home, right? So that's the idea about it.
Interesting.
And they like every young freaking Turkish traditional couple in the West who's married in their early 20s, they obviously gotta have some problems in their first year of marriage, right? Like it is the most natural thing like ever. And their conclusion was like, they asked my mother and all that, and she was like, well, maybe there is something, there's like, maybe there's a jinn and all that. And like the moment I hear that, I already thought this is all just so ridiculous. Like, how could you even consider it? And whenever I questioned it, they were like, well, if you have to like believe in them, like that it is in the Quran. If you don't believe in jinns, like you're not a Muslim. And I was like, I'm not saying that I'm not believing in them. I'm just saying that they won't bother just like bothering humans here and there, and giving humans convenient explanations for issues. Basically, long story short, they went to a imam in the Netherlands. He was super praised from like people we know, allegedly. And he said that he's doing it for no money. He's just doing it for like God and all that. He's like using his gift to help people, and he's not doing it for the money. Like I was like, well, I know those two. They are like they believe in things that are not true anyway. So if that is going to help their marriage, or if that is going to help them at all, and if it is not causing any harm, I'll just sit back and like enjoy the show and like giggle in my fist, right? So basically, they came back, and I was like, "Well, what happened? Elaborate, like explain what happened." And they started to explain it, and I couldn't help myself, but I was always grinning, because I just found like the way that they explained just so ridiculous. And then my mom was like, well, yeah, we will come to you as well. I showed him a picture of you, and you have your demons as well. And he told the imam told me that you particularly will not believe this and all that. And I thought, well, how convenient. Well, if you already show him like an image of a person where you give him the feeling that you might be suspicious about this person, and might be suspicious about this person believing in it, the imam can maybe tell your mimics and think, oh, this might be someone who is like weird, so I can like tell stuff like, oh, he won't believe in this. And all of a sudden you have like a perfect miracle imam and all that. I talked to my brother back then. It was the standard stuff, right? He said the standard stuff. So basically he said, well, it is the women's fault. The woman was infested by one, and like it is and then he was like, you're feeling it at this finger, right? And all that. And my brother was like, I wasn't feeling it. Like my brother was like, at some point it was just so uncomfortable that I just said that I'm feeling it, right? So he got to leave me alone. And and after that I kind of learned that he actually charged the money per person, like as if you're going to McDonald's and buying a menu. He was just like charging afterwards. And it was just like my dad told me, my dad said like, I'll just give them I'll just put the money in the box for the madrasa, right? Because like the mosques always have like that box for the madrasas and all that. And then the guy was like, no, just give it to me. And I was like, how wasn't that a red flag for you? Like, he just charged you a bill. He just saw dollar signs, and for every picture you for every picture of a relative where you were suspicious, he just saw more dollar signs in the eyes of the persons on the picture. Like, how isn't that obvious? I was like, I for me it was just hilarious, right? I couldn't take it serious at all. And then I kept talking to my brother, and my brother didn't even know that he charged them. After I told him that, he was like, that fucking bastard, he's like a rotten guy, and how could he charge if he says he doesn't charge and all that. And like, it even went so far, like that guy said to them, if you keep having problems, just send me a message on WhatsApp. I'll send my jinn helpers to you. They can move with the speed of light, and they will help you immediately and all that.
Fuck off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But here comes the best part. Like, at some situation, why? Like, my brother said, like, at some situation he couldn't get it up, right? His best thing didn't work. And then he asked the imam, and then the imam was like, well, just send me a picture. And then I was like, what the fuck? This guy's just a fucking weirdo who's like getting off by genitalia.
A picture. He actually said, send me a picture.
Yeah, and my brother was, well, then I actually just sent him a picture. And then he said that he did dua, and I don't know. And I was like, why did you do that? And
he sent him a picture?
Yeah, he sent the imam a dick pic, basically. Like, it is just so incredibly stupid. And I talked to him. I was like, maybe that guy believes that his gifted grandpa gave him this miracle power of seeing jinns in his dying bed, and now he has like the obligation to help people. But what he actually does is charging people like a big amount of money, and then getting dick pics from desperate guys, right? Like, what the fuck? Like,
hey, but then they vilify OnlyFans girls who do the same exact thing. What the hell?
Yeah. Oh man, it is. I can't. I didn't even start how entangled the fucking manosphere and black pill bullshit is with.
Okay. By the way, jokes aside, I am so sorry to your brother. Like, we joke about this, but this is actually, I would see this as a form of sexual assault.
Yes.
Like, he tricked him using this cloak of religion. I don't even know what the guy actually believes. Like, these delusional people can reach positions of power in religion. It's scary.
It is.
I don't even know if that guy's like maliciously asking for a pic, or he actually really thinks that it helps. Whatever the case was, I am sorry for your brother that he was influenced by him and he actually did it. I hope it doesn't leave any lasting marks on your brother.
My brother is pretty rough. Like, he forgot it. Like, the moment I told him he charged him, he was like, okay, fuck this guy. And then he basically closed it. Like,
so the picture happened before charging, or like?
No, the charging happened at the day they went there. But my brother didn't know that they were charged.
Okay.
My father paid the bill, right? Paid the bill. Like, oh, I'm doing this for the religion I'm gifted, but then, pay the bill. And the moment I like, my mom was always defending him. My mom was always like, well, we can't know it. He is so like, he studied this, he knows so much more, and like he is such a good person and all that. And I was like, it it is just, it is delusion, like delusion on a whole other level. Like, especially when I started to like see this bullshit, I started to see like how there's like, I'm not talking about like the majority of from those 1.5 billion people. Like, I'm talking about the practicing ones that are taking stuff serious, right? But I mean, I can compare them to citizens of North Korea, or like to some other thing where they are just told from the beginning of their life just the same things over and over. And whenever you critique, critique you hear is just like some whispering of shaitan, right? Like,
It's a very good analogy, by the way. Like the leader of North Korea does not take poops, for example. He does not
yes,
shit.
he doesn't.
But
He
the
is-
prophet,
he-
his sweat smells good. Like people
Yeah.
fight over his sweat. That's the same
When-
exact thing.
Exactly. Whenever he like took a dump, there was immediately like grass and like plants growing over it, so it smelled good as well. So it wasn't bad as well, right? Like I wasted my best years. I wasted my teens and my early 20s to this delusion, and I'm just like, not just now, but like I just realized that I didn't even have like that aha moment. It was like it came with time, and basically I never would have like the term ex-Muslim wasn't even known for me till like that video where I actually like saw that there's a group that calls themselves like that.
So just
So
like a couple of weeks ago then, right?
yeah,
When you saw
basically,
that.
well, I knew for myself I'm not believing anything anymore. So I knew it for myself, and I didn't even want to hide it, because whenever someone like like tried to bring me back, I always like countered with stuffs like that, like a working mind would say in that position. But basically, I'm like at the point where I like, no one of my family knows it yet, but like, I mean, I'm in the West, so as long as I'm not doing like caricatures or like publicly violating or stuff like that, right? I like, I don't have the feeling that my life is threatened by my family or something. But about like when a maniac in the internet finds it, or like just has it made this to his own mission to like find those murtads and all that, that's something I can't like comprehend right now. But like, my mom is still going to the mosque weekly and taking her like lessons and all that. So I'm not really sure how she would respond. It is very realistic that she would like neglect me as a child, but yeah, I don't know. Like, as long as my family isn't pushing me, I will kind of leave them alone. But I have a smaller brother as well, who is like his 12, 13 or something. And I just see how it influences him. I see in him my past self, right? So like a lot of younger relatives as well. Like I'm actually thinking to myself, how can I help them? Or like, for example, a few days ago, like we were at my brother's, and like, for dinner and all that. And he was like, well, my wife can't go to the gym because then I would be a deuse. And I was like, a what? And then he said like, a deuse. And I was like, what is that? And then he said like, well, those are the people who are like letting their wives run around to let the other men see them, and the prophet said that they cannot join heaven. And I was like, I am just hearing this right now. Like, I never heard this before. And then I was like, isn't that hypocritical? And then he said, what? And I said like, whenever it is a rule that like inflicts your freedom, then it is like, well, I'm a cynist and I can't do everything. But whenever it is a rule that like controls the freedom of other persons, for example, your wife, then you're all of a sudden a believing Muslim. And then he said, no, that's not hypocritical and all that. And it is just like in my culture, like that there is a lot of messed up stuff anyway. And I always hated the hypocrisy with how they treat like either like their girls or their boys, because like the boys are like basically having a free pass to do anything. And whenever it was a girl, it was basically like, well, I have to protect her with anything. If something happens, I'll just shoot her, myself, and everyone involved and all that, right? So I always thought that this whole idea of
Wait a second. Have to protect her, but he would shoot her and everyone involved.
Yeah,
So have to
for
protect the idea of the sanctity of her vagina.
yeah, exactly. For
not
example, all
protecting
those
her.
stories,
Yeah,
all those
okay.
honor murderings and all that, it is always involved with someone's daughter or someone's sister or so. It is never the boy. It is never the boy that is like, lured from an older woman. Like then they would be like, whoa, man, props to you, like an older woman, good for you and all that. But at the same time, if it was your daughter, it is a whole other story. So I always hated the type hypocrisy. Like either you treat both the same, like give both the same freedom, or you just restrict them both. At least then you would be consistent. But treating them differently is just messed up. Like my when we had the discussion with my brother, and where I was like kind of defending the freedom of his wife, right, which she obviously has, but at the same time doesn't. I was like, at some point he just laughed and said, well, you just had bad luck coming to the world as a woman. And I was like, well, that's basically how our culture thinks about them. Like they just had bad luck. They just like had the wrong chromosome, so now they are women, they are inferior, they need to be controlled and all that. And it is just so stupid.
This sounds very similar to the animated video that I published last, the conversation between two guys.
Yeah,
what was she wearing?
exactly.
Yeah, some people think that like I'm making up these conversations. These conversations happen around us all the time.
Oh, I can tell so many stories like this. Like I'm full of it. Like it isn't a made up. Like I'm the living example from all those stories. Like I saw so many of them, especially the most recent video with the shouting dude, right? You said like there wouldn't ever be a ex-kafir who is now a Muslimah who would tell like, oh man, I sucked so many dicks back then and I took it everywhere and I did gangbang and now see where I am now, I'm a Muslim. Like no one would ever consider that to be possible. Like at that point, I think that person would actually, even though if that person would do that to like invite to Islam, people would get so triggered that they would still try to harm her. But if that dude, like the shouting guy, did that, then it is like, oh man, look at him, what an alpha male, and he gave it everything up, such a giga chat, everything just for Islam and all that. It is just hypocrisy, nothing else.
It's actually the perfect way for these guys to prey on incels is first, go out there and get laid and all that stuff. So be the guy they want to be, and then act like you gave it all up, or at least like you can claim that you did all that. You gave it all up to be a pious person, which is the person that they really want to be, to be a good Muslim. So he's playing both sides, right? Like he's the fuck boy they never will get a chance to be because they want to remain Muslim. Like they can live vicariously through him almost and know that, well, it wasn't all that good. I want to do the same thing in the afterlife. That's a whole like it's an iceberg. Like the whole I don't know what color pills they have these days: red pill, blue pill, black pill, all that kind of stuff.
I can take track as well. Yeah, it is basically eating the cake while keeping it. But if a woman would say that, it would be like eating the cake, not eating the cake and still losing the cake. Like it is messed up, man. It is messed up. Also, like this idea, I see it from my like I have infinite examples of this. Like this, a guy living like the fuckboy life, and then but like whenever he is like supposed to find someone for marriage, it is like, it needs to be someone who fits my family. Like that guy himself doesn't even fit his family anymore, because the family doesn't even know what kind of messed up stuff is happening. But when it comes to their own wife, it has to be someone who fits the family. And all of a sudden that fuckboy dude is somewhat supposed to be like the holy guy who is like now with the holy virgin from the hometown, from wherever. And like now he it is just hypocrisy. It is that always bothered me, like the way that even like the weird thing is, in the culture, it doesn't even like really matter that much how you are like how religious you are, but the whole protecting the female relatives in your family thing is just so deeply integrated into all that. It's messed up.
Well, you said protecting your female relatives, and I want to correct that phrasing, because you had also mentioned earlier the guy who would say, if anything happens, like if my daughter has sex, I will protect her. I want to protect her by killing her and everyone involved. So this instinct is not really to protect the women in our families. I mean, it does have that side effect. Of course, we don't want anything harmful to happen to them, but it's more about protecting the sanctity of them as our property by proxy, kind of like it's not really about their safety and their well-being. It's more about protecting the idea of, I don't want my sister this or that,
Yes.
So protection is misleading, and that's how they get the idea in, because protection is good, right? You don't want harm to befall your female relative or anyone, but they hide all the other stuff in the excuse of protection,
Yeah, the protection part has to be taken with some salt. Like, obviously, whatever you are, you should try to like protect your fellow human beings. Doesn't matter if they are like your relatives or your friends or your colleagues. That's obvious, but like the perversion of the word protection and how it is actually used, like I'm protecting you by like killing you and then killing myself. What kind of protection is that? Like, but yeah, you said it, like making it clear is sometimes much more important than it should be.
Yeah. And one thing I want to note is you mentioned that you feel like to recap, you have been not really practicing for a couple of years now, at least, and or not necessarily like practicing like a good Muslim would, but you didn't know that there is such a category of a person who has left Islam, and only till 2 weeks ago you realized that ex-Muslims exist. Did you think that other people have left Islam as well?
Like I knew Salman Rushdie, right? So, and I knew like some examples of the public, what happens to them. So, and I from my like I also have like some friends who are like, come on, man, don't leave me alone with that Islam stuff. So I knew that there are like a lot of persons who are like not taking it serious, or who are not believing, but who are just still just keeping the label, or where it is just written in their passports and all that. But like I didn't know that it is, even though it is a much significant smaller group, like ex-Christians, you can find like millions of them in the web, right? Or whatever cult there is, right? But for ex-Muslims, I always had like this idea, because like it is like getting like this, like getting executed basically, that I then gave the idea a thought that there could be something like that. So I had the idea that maybe there is something, but maybe they are like hiding, like the Jews were hiding in the Second World War. Like I didn't even know where to begin or to start, or I didn't actually search for it actively as well. So I just basically stumbled upon it. And now that I'm like on your channel, for example, I see that there are a lot of recurring names, and some of the people who are commenting on your videos recently, they have like their own channels. They have like their like 10K subscribers themselves, and they do this themselves. So now I'm actually being opened up to the idea.
And keep in mind, like, my channel is relatively very small, and the number of recurring viewers who, you know, come back and comment and stuff, I notice them, and, you know, some of them are here right now, and I appreciate them being here. So that's not to discount any of that. But this is just a small sliver of the big, you know, pie. There are a lot of people who, just like you were, you know, 3 weeks ago, didn't even think that there's a group of people who have left. Like, we've all, myself, back when I was kind of an in-betweener, I knew of people who, like a cousin or a relative of a cousin or whoever, a friend of the family, who now lives in some other country and has a white wife or something, you know? And I thought of that as, oh, he's not really a practicing Muslim, or he's kind of like a poorly practicing Muslim or whatever. I didn't think of it the way that I think of someone like you, for example, someone who struggled with the religion and left it, and an ex-Muslim. You know, I just thought there were fringe minorities that were exceptions to the rule, but we're not exceptions to the rule. There is no rule. There's a lot of ex-Muslims, and I'm glad that even though, you know, it took that long, that you've now found us and you found that we exist. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of luck as well. But as you said, like, I usually thought, like, you know, those who are like not having to do anything with the deen, they must be some of those who, like you, like the ones you described, who just lived like their lives in the West and who were never really bothered. But like I'm the opposite, right? I went to the deepest bullshit and like was a pain in the ass to everyone next to me, and then I, compared to now, like I don't even know how my family would like, what the first reaction would be, like, oh well, you know, decide whether you want to be an imam now or whether you want to be an ex-Muslim now, because like I was always only known for that one extreme, and now it's like the other extreme, right?
Yeah. And I guess you might be worried that they would see it as an extreme rather than a reasonable conclusion.
Yes, exactly, because if you can't allow the fact that you can have healthy doubts, there is no way you can, like, I mean, I'm, compared to my parents, I'm relatively young, and like, even for me it was hard. What if for example, my mother, she basically gave up everything in her life, and like, what if she would like, it sounds weird, but if she would join us, for example, what would she have? You know, like, I don't think that people, like, obviously there are people who are like leaving even in their 40s or 50s. They are very much the exception, I guess. I'm not sure, but yeah, for the generation of my parents and even my grandparents, it just seems impossible that, like, after a certain age, I just see them now as like lost causes, right? So I wouldn't even, I don't know. But the weird thing is, I just, right now, I just like want to get it out, you know, just talk about it. Or like, I was never one of those who were like, you know, like, I like the community and all that. And like, I even did Umrah in my dabbling phase. And even there, I realized, like, the first time I saw the Kaaba, I looked at the Kaaba and I was like, this isn't moving me at all. Then I was looking at my left and right to the friends I went there with, and they were like, as if they saw God themselves, right? And I was like, how come I don't feel this, right? Like, all I'm feeling right now is that my legs are itching because of the because of the thing we have to wear. Like, I always thought that it is my fault, right? I even tried to like find some time and like read Quran and look at the Kaaba at the same time. I did that and all that, but like it didn't move anything in me. Like I don't know. It was weird. Like, also the thing that I realized when I was there was that everywhere are photographs and posters of like the king and his father and like someone else, and I was like, what the hell is even going on? I thought this was like the country of Islam and all that, and in Islam it's actually not allowed to have like photos in your house, and here I am, and at every store sign is like some photo of some dictator hanging. Like, I was confused myself why what was the case, because in Turkey we have that as well. Like, I don't know what it is, but I guess less developed countries just love big pictures of older men everywhere when they are moving around. Like in Turkey, it is basically you can see everywhere the face of Erdogan, or like the face of Atatürk and all that. Like,
it's nationalism. I think it's when you need people to believe in something, you know, they see that person as the hero who's going to save their troubled country, you know. So
yeah,
when a country is doing well and they realize that it's more about democracy and about working together than one person, they don't idolize one figure. But we see that a lot back in these countries, unfortunately.
yeah, the nationalism is like a very big nemesis of mine as well. Like it slips in, or it slithers in with, like, you know, you can be proud about some aspects about your country, and then it ends basically with, well, our country is the best, everyone else hates us, and we are supreme, and we kind of like have to like you know, control the world or something. Like, I've seen two like I live in Germany, who has like a past, you know, and who still has like hard nationalists, but and I know from my family, like I even have from my family, I even have like two sides. I have the Kurds and I have the Turks, and both of them have like I saw both nationalists of them, and then I saw the German nationalists, and all I can say is, like, the whole nationalist idea, like, I know the political potential in it to like establish your own system, or like your own cult or like regime even, but I just don't know how a sane person can actually like practice nationalism. That is still a question I can't answer myself. Like, it's not about those, you know, like being happy about some stuffs about like your land or something. You often say, like, I worry about my people. I really get that phrase. Like, I worry about my people as well, like all the time. But it is not like in a way where I would say that like my people are supreme or something like that, you know, like, because in Turkish communities it is often divided in two. Like you have very big polarization there. Like, either they are conservative and pro-Islam and like pro-Erdogan mostly, or they are everything else, which, like, from the conservative side is just seen as like kufar and all that. Like, and then you have like the other extremists who are like, you know, hang all those I'm obviously I'm like overdoing it here a little, but like, you get the idea, right?
Mhm.
So even the weird thing is, the insidious thing is, sometimes people explain nationalism with the deen. Like, my mother always says, like, you know, without the country there is no deen, or something. Without the flag there is no country. Without the country there is no deen, or something like super weird. And then I'm like, what if a gypsy is just converting to Islam? Well, what if someone who doesn't even know where he comes from is converting to Islam? Basically, then he has no Islam because he has no country, or what is the idea? Like, it is super weird. So I don't know how it is exactly in Arabic cultures, but in Turkish cultures, like the Islam and nationalism go hand in hand and are best friends. They kind of even like also like, I mean, the Turks also have like that. Oh, you know, back in the days, the Ottoman empire and all that. Yeah, those were the good old days. And oh yeah, the Europeans still fear us. We went to Austria. We knocked on their doors, and they were so afraid, and they are still afraid of us. Like a lot of people in Turkey are thinking that like they are the most important country in the world right now, and every other country in the world is looking at them, and that like the West conspired against them. Like, where are you coming from? Like, where does this delusion come from? But then I realized it is mostly because of echo chambers. I mean, I see it from my own mother. Like, she is living in an echo chamber. Like, I saw it at Corona, right? Like, Corona started, and the first conspiracy started, and who were the first persons who told me about those conspiracies? Obviously, my parents and my brother, because why not? Well, the West said something, obviously it has to be wrong. So let's just, I'm not saying that everything the Western media says is right. Like, you just have to be you just have to view it critically as well. But like,
well, the susceptibility for religious beliefs is the same susceptibility for other conspiracy theories.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's not like once you've accepted as a premise that you can believe things without actually verifying them, that you can believe outrageous, crazy magic and black magic and jinn and all sorts of things that are far from logic, then it's not that crazy to think that the government is conspiring against your country.
It actually makes even more sense. Like,
It might fit into the same story, yeah. It might support part of the rest of your conspiracies.
I think if you have a simple view of the world where this is the enemy, this are the friends, my purpose is this, I think life is then much more easier because you don't have to question things. Like, obviously they will get hurt from the systems they believe in if they get hurt from them. But for example, if you start to question everything, I mean, you don't have to question if you you like at some point doubting some stuff doesn't make any sense anymore. For example, the idea that are we in a matrix or not, like that is it is like a nice funny idea to think about, but at the end of the day the result doesn't matter and doesn't change our situation. We exist right now, so we have to deal with it, right? So but like if you like see the media or like see things that are that people are telling, and you're always like acting like don't believe it immediately. For example, like my mom told me something about like, well, yeah, Corona is China made, and it is from that lab, and there is this one former lab worker who like went to America and told the truth and all that, and I was like, that can't be true. If that would be true, like if that would be such a big deal, I would have already known it, right? Like, because I'm also like at my PC daily, I am following the news. And then she was like, no, it's true, look into it. And then I looked into it, and it kind of like came out as like some hoax again. Like I myself don't know like what actually was the truth. Like, I just go with the idea. Back then it was kind of like with some bad shit, because people like went into areas they shouldn't have gone. But like
it's easier to go through life almost passively accepting these more simplistic
Yes.
explanations than investigating what's or than being okay with not knowing the answer.
It comes in with a lot of perks as well. Your friends, your relatives will have the same opinion. You will always have like friends or relatives where you can belittle the whole West, with like, oh, those small-minded Westerns, they don't even know anything. They are believing everything that the government says them, but at the same time, they are believing everything their own government says them, right? So it is just so weird. Like, I'm at the point right now where like even talking with my relatives is kind of causing me small pain, because I'm like still like using phrases with from Islam, right? Because in Turkish culture, what they did, because they love their language so much, I don't know what it is, but they just like translated a lot of Islamic phrases just into Turkish, right? So for example, if someone asks you how you are, you don't say like, some say Alhamdulillah, but others will also say like Allah Shukr. It's just like the same in Turkish, right? And it is like, at some point, you can't even like do a normal conversation without any of those phrasings, because it is just like so much worked into the language, right? You know? And yeah, I mean, Ramadan is coming soon. I think this year will be like the first where I won't even pretend as if I'm fasting. And if I'm getting challenged or like questions why I don't do it, I'll just counter with like some sprinkles of doubt, you know. So either they will just like come back at me to get more sprinkles of doubt, or they will just leave me alone because they are feared about what the doubt might cause to them, right?
That's one way. Yeah. But I'm glad that you're taking the step of this may not be the right step for everyone, but it sounds like it feels like the right step for you to not pretend to fast this year. It'll be liberating. It might be challenging, but hopefully it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, as you said, I especially wouldn't recommend it for everyone. Like, you know, I'm in a situation like I'm in Germany, right? And I kind of know my parents and like my family, and I'm very confident about myself. Like, a lot of times people in my family don't even want to debate with me because they know that I'll just like take it serious and then like go into the detail, and like they just give up at some point, right? Even talking about debunking conspiracy theories and all that. So I'm very confident about myself. But as you said, like, if it is such a bad term, but a closeted ex-Muslim, I hate the term to like act like the diabolized munafiqs they see in the Quran, right? So, but some people just don't have the choice. They just can't act differently. Like, I get that. Like, for me, the idea of, for example, living in a country where I couldn't do this. Like, I mean, right now I mostly fear like the way that my family would like react, right? But that's nothing compared to the fear that you will get like pulled out of your home and then like slaughtered at the street, right? So for those who have like that fear, I'm sorry for them, and I can just like tell them to stay strong, I guess. And I mean, you have to hide your face. I get all that. Like, I never questioned why you did that. Only question I had was like, sometimes you were like talking for hours and hours and hours and you weren't drinking at all. And I was like, how is he doing this? Like, is he having like some needle in his arm where he's getting fluids into it or something? Or is he like fasting, or what is he doing? Like, I suppose it happens when you close your camera for a few seconds.
That's part of it, and also I moderate my water intake, because if I drink too quickly or drink too much, then I need to use the bathroom, which I can't do during a live stream. But yeah, once I hang up like a live stream, I drink a lot of water and I take a long rest, because sometimes these go on for a while. It's been what, 4 hours 15 minutes? Wow. Okay. Yeah, it was a long live stream, but I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, I very much did, because like, I mean, this was maybe like the first time that I somewhat publicly told my story, right? And the weird thing is I didn't even went into detail, like, and I still took a lot of time, right? So I'm sorry if I like took too much time. I was
That's okay.
supposed to be the last caller. Like, I don't want to like annoy anyone or something, but as I said, like, I have a lot to say about the different kinds of topics, and I guess that was like one of the main reasons why I didn't stop talking.
I'm glad you got to let it all out. And I know that this is all very recent. I mean, not everything is very recent, but the realization that there are other people out there who are similar to you and the acceptance of it is very recent for you. And you had mentioned that you feel like you wasted your best years and your early 20s and so on. I hope that you can see, reframe it a little bit. Think of it as you could have wasted your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s until your 80s, but you're not going to be wasting them.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Like, I just right now I just feel like this urge to go to everyone I annoyed the bejesus out of them, and then just to apologize for being such a fucking big pain in the ass back then. But I don't even know if that's gonna help. Like, I mean, I actually got like some people even joined to those groups where I'm not a part of anymore, and I don't know what they could have been and all that. Like, a lot of people who called in had like that issue, right? Like, in Islamic terms, they did nothing wrong. They are getting hasana for every time the person they brought in, like a pyramid scheme, right? You said it at one point, but it is like a pyramid scheme, and now I just feel sorry. Like, I can't stop thinking about what could have been, but at the same time, I know that the question what could have been isn't really like healthy or helping. Like, at some point, you just have to, move on and do the best with the time you have left, right? So I'm not, I'm trying not to like lose myself in the what could have been and all that, because that's not helping anybody. But yeah,
There's a lot of that could and will be, hopefully.
yeah,
Yeah,
inshallah.
inshallah. Well, if you do feel like you want to talk again, I'm probably going to be hosting one of these live streams in a few weeks. Then, feel free to call in again, of course.
Yeah, sure. If it is a topic where I can contribute something, or if I just, I'll make sure of it. But like, I saw that some people are like coming back in the calls, right? So even
And some
Muslims
people
are,
after like 9 months or something, they come back. So it's very interesting. Those are especially interesting when there's, a lot of time for things to have changed. So or not changed, but it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it for sure is. Because like right now I'm like listening to some of your old streams, but since they are longer than your normal uploads, I watch them like speeded up, and then when you are like in the stream speeding up a video of some sheikh you're showing, then it's a lot of mambo jumbo, but it is funny. But like, at the same time, like, I would never think of you as like a prophet or something, or like people, and sometimes Muslims in the chat are like treating you as if you are like this big cult leader yourself, but that's not the case. Like, just because you agree that something is not true doesn't mean that you have to agree on everything else, and that you actually like make an own truth yourself, right? So I mean, obviously, if you go insane, or someone else is going insane, you don't have to like go down with that person, right? Like, people also have to lose the idea that like you have to commit to someone like to the death, like you would have committed to the religion, right? So, but what I can say is like, definitely keep up the good work as long as you can. I mean, I don't have to say that you'll do it anyway, but if there is like any way we can help, like unfortunately right now I can't help financially, but I try to like get your clicks up, right? And yeah, it is also like I've in a lot of the videos and a lot of the comments, it is just wholesome to see people like who are somewhat hurt in different ways, but have like that same, like the same roots, and come together and like feel for each other, and it feels also like a safe space as well, like obviously with the exclusions from the trolls and all that. But yeah, I'm very thankful for your work as well, and it is very interesting. The most interesting part is that you're like a native speaking Arab, right? Like because like people are still saying like, well, he can't because he didn't study and all that. Like, I mean, you what like I actually had like a conversation like yesterday, I think, with a friend, where I like started to like pour out my thoughts, and I was like, and he was like, just for the cause, he took like the position of defending, and like all the things, all these things with this aren't the real Muslims, and this isn't the real Islam. And I was like having myself, I had this thought of like, well, if like the guys from IKEA had like the idea of like building a something from wood, right? And they give instructions to how to do them. Like maybe like they have 5 different instructions, and then at the end they'll just go with the one that has like the biggest success rate, right? Like if one of the instructions leads to 95% of the to the right result, maybe you'll go with it. But like if one of the instruction leads to 50% of the people building a guillotine instead, then something's wrong with the instruction, right? Like, how can that still be like defended if as if it was perfect and timeless, when it needs so much understanding and pre-learning and studying to be even able to like get in a position where you can even dare to say that you understand it? That's so stupid. Like,
I've made that same exact analogy before, with an IKEA instruction manual. You cannot accidentally make a bomb out of an IKEA instruction manual.
hopefully not. Yeah.
And if you do, like, I don't know, like if you have a big percentage of people who do, a non-negligible percentage, then you need to write a better manual. Then how can we say that the Quran is perfect if it leads a lot of people, if that is actually the case, leading people astray, or people are misunderstanding or whatever? Then write a better book.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's where my idea with the sick freak comes in again. Like, I mean, like, just imagine someone like God just laughing about, oh man, they're still trying to figure out what I meant, and I just meant that for them, and at the end they will burn anyway. So maybe he's just laughing at all of us, if he even exists.
Yeah, if God is Rick Sanchez the entire time.
Oh man, yeah, what a plot twist. But yeah, let's not lure in that weird community. Otherwise, they'll just jump onto McDonald's workers and scream weird stuff into their faces or whatever they do.
Yeah, that's crazy. But if you do the same thing with religion, it's pious.
Yeah, then it is justified. Yeah. Especially like there, like, I don't know about you, but one of the things I find very enjoyable is like different kinds of like Abrahamic religious people who are dancing, and then just like there's some sort of techno music played over it, and then at the end you just get like some weird as for example, there are a bunch of videos in YouTube with like Sufis dancing, and then there's techno music played over it, which just fits perfectly. Or the same is done with like some guy in the church, or like with a Jewish marriage and all that, and like they don't even realize how similar they are, but at the same time they demonize themselves like all the time.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to see it from the outside, I guess. And I wonder what's the outside for me? Like, what is someone looking at me doing, me oblivious about, doing it? But I wonder if I'll ever be that self-aware. I don't know.
Yeah, that is like, I mean, I always have this feeling where I like I'm embarrassed of my past self, and maybe I will be again in 5 years about my current self, and maybe I will again think again that how stupid or naive could I have been, like not in terms of I'll turn back and be like a big imam or something, but maybe there are other things, like it never stops like growing, right? Or like the amount of self-awareness never stops growing, I guess.
Hopefully. Not for everyone, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that it only gets better from here.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, once again, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing today, and I hope that you feel better now than you did before the call.
I definitely do. I was very excited before the call when I was waiting in the lobby, because like I didn't even know where to start. Also, like English isn't even my second language, right? But since I'm like spending a lot of time in the web, and like I'm doing a lot of private stuff in English, so I was confident enough to like call in. But I definitely feel better now, and I feel somewhat even released. And like I'm glad I met you, not as if I met like a prophet, just like as if I met like a good friend, or just a fellow good human being, like nothing special. Like you don't have to, like the same way you don't have to demonize people, you also don't have to like praise them into heaven, right? We also see that like happening a lot in the hadiths with how good the persons are and all that. Like, they are just humans, like others are just humans. We can just appreciate ourselves just for being that. Like we don't have to like exaggerate a lot. But I was very glad I made it here. I mean, I thought that the stream would be like 12 like PM, I guess. So I wasn't sure if YouTube is showing my time or not. So before the stream started, I was actually listening to an old stream of yours, and then I just refreshed the YouTube site, and then I was like, oh my god, the stream is already going on since 2 hours, because I wanted to make it there to like maybe have a chance or a shot at like telling my story, right? So I'm very glad I made it here, even though I was so late.
Well, if you believe in fate and all that kind of stuff, you would see it as, because you're late, you got to speak for longer because you got to be the last caller. But obviously that is a coincidence, a happy coincidence rather than fate. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe in fate, but yeah, it is a happy coincidence, as you told. Yeah, it kind of worked out at the end, I guess. God's ways, I guess.
Yeah, I'm happy it did. Well, I will have to let you go here.
Yeah,
and
it's been overdue.
Yeah, and I hope you get some restful sleep. It must be very, very late where you are right now. I'm
yes,
guessing.
It is. I mean, it wasn't an issue for me because right now I have like a weird rhythm, but yeah, no worries. I'll be fine. Thanks again, and until next time, I guess.
Until next time, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you once again to the caller. Yeah, it's been a long live stream, but I enjoyed it. And let me read a couple of comments before I go, and I have some closing thoughts, I guess. Mark, thank you so much for the super chat. He was saying your stamina on the live chats is legendary. I don't know how I do it. I'm paying attention to the live chats too at the same time, but I am listening to the callers. Trust me, I am listening to you all the time. Thank you again, ES1002, for the super chat. In all our lifetimes, will Islam collapse? I don't think so. And like Christianity's still around, right? There's still harm that comes from Christianity. I'm not saying there isn't, but it's a lot less than it used to be. I don't even think Islam will reach that point by the end of my lifetime. I hope so, but I don't think so. But it's going to be a long journey, and I try not to focus on how long it'll take, but that the incremental change is already happening. So I hope to see a lot of it in my lifetime. But religions won't just collapse in 70 years, at least not these days anymore. We have everything already like codified, and it lives for a long time on the internet. So yeah, I don't think Islam's going anywhere anytime soon, but we are seeing change. So yeah, I forgot what my closing thoughts were. I think at some point I was very angry at what are they called? These exorcist sheikhs. And that's what I wanted to rant about when the call was over. I don't know if they actually believe their delusions. I don't know if they don't. Whether they're unwitting idiots or evil manipulators, I think they're and maybe this is my own personal thing getting in the way. I have some experience with that through a loved one. I think they're scum. Like I really am disappointed when I see this kind of stuff happening today. I think everyone should know better. And without religion, maybe we would know better. We would know that there is no such thing as jinn possessing your body and all that kind of stuff. But because of religion, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who willingly take their loved ones, their children, their adult loved ones to those so-called exorcists. Yeah, I just want to make it clear, if you're an exorcist, you absolutely suck. I hope you slip on a banana peel and I don't know, your butt gets sore. I don't really know. I hate these guys. So not really much of an afterthought here. Just wanted to rant about exorcists, that I hate them. Anyway, oh, and last comment. Rory says, would you ever get married, Aladdin? I hope so. Do you have a partner? Not at the moment, unfortunately. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining me during this long and very enjoyable live stream. And yeah, I really am spent. I have nothing else on my mind. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do. Comment your thoughts after the live stream is over. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.